Chapter 2466. There were many people on the street, but it was also very quiet. It was almost the same as Shunjuli's parade on the Tianxi continent. If it was said that Ning Xuema had some suspicions about this state teacher before, now that she saw the palanquin, that bit of suspicion vanished like smoke into thin air. It's him. No matter how he did it, the person in this sedan chair should be the Almighty without a doubt. Could it be that the Almighty had accidentally returned to his original body in the space-time whirlpool and recovered all his skills? She was full of doubts, but only the person in the sedan chair could answer her doubts. Ning Xuema walked towards the sedan chair. The wide sedan chair door was opened by a young man who was escorting the sedan chair. The sedan chair was very deep, and even if the door was opened, she could not see the person inside. But Ning Xuema could feel that there was a gaze on her, and she was very familiar with this gaze. It was really the Almighty. Ning Xuema no longer had any doubts. She directly boarded the sedan chair and stepped into it. As soon as she entered, her wrist was held by a small hand. That small hand pulled her, and Ning Xuema sat on a soft brocade stool in the sedan chair. The sedan chair door closed, and a luminous pearl slowly lit up in the sedan chair. The Almighty sat on the brocade stool, and one of his small hands had already touched her pulse. A pair of deep blue eyes quickly checked her body, and his voice was as cold as usual. "Is there anything wrong with you?" Those few words expressed his concern, and Ning Xuema's heart warmed. Seeing him again, her heart was finally at ease. She shook her head. I'm fine. Shunjuli did not let go of her hand. "You've exhausted a lot of your strength. How many times did you use the soul responding technique?" The Almighty's eyes were indeed like torches. Ning Xuema raised her hand and pulled him into her embrace. She rested her chin on his shoulder. "It's not that many times. Almighty, why didn't you tell me that you've lost all your skills?" As she spoke, she checked his pulse. It was probably the first time Shunjuli was hugged by her like this, and his body stiffened. He wanted to struggle, but Ning Xuema hugged him tightly. "Almighty, let me hug you for a while." She had been worried for too long, and until now, she was still a little anxious. Only by hugging him could she feel his reality, and only then could she feel at ease. "Shunjuli." He stopped struggling and took out a pill, and put it near her lips. "Come, be good, eat this." Ning Xuema knew that he gave her a pill, and she swallowed it, and accidentally sucked one of his fingers. Just as she was about to use the tip of her tongue to push his finger away, his finger pressed down on the tip of her tongue. Then, he moved closer to her and said with a faint smile, "You want it?" Ning Xuema. "Almighty, you look like a child. Is it really appropriate for you to say such teasing words?" She bit his finger, and then kissed his cheek. "Almighty, pay attention to your image." She kissed him like she was kissing a child. Shunjuli tilted his head, and Ning Xuema's lips on his cheek moved to his lips. Thus, Ning Xuema and the child Almighty kissed once. After a while the two of them separated slightly. Shunjuli looked at her slightly blushing face and smiled. "Is the kiss more interesting this time? Almighty, you can be even more shameless." It turned out that after the Almighty became a child, once he let go, it was quite dangerous. The sedan moved very steadily, and Ning Xuema leaned against the window to look at the street for a while. Chapter 2467. Different continents naturally had different sceneries. Looking at the bustling and clean streets and the people's clothes, one would know that this city, and even this country, were well governed. Ning Xuema learned from the conversation with Shunjuli that this continent was the only one that Shunjuli had ever been to where psyche power could not be used. Shunjuli had been to this continent twice 500 years ago. Although he did not stay for long, he had subdued the people of this continent. There were still legends about him in this continent. This time he was brought here by the whirlpool. Although he was a boy and had no power, he carried a lot of things with him, including a patrol sedan chair and other items that could prove his identity. When he came here through time travel, he happened to meet a group of patrolling guards. Those guards naturally did not know him, but when they saw him jump out of the snow, they were shocked and scared. They even wanted to kill him. However, the Almighty was indeed the Almighty. He was the first to state his identity. Of course, He did not say that he was once the overlord, but said that he was the overlord's boy. Even if he was the overlord's boy, he was still very honorable. Naturally, these people did not believe Shenjuli's words. Although Shenjuli had lost all his skills, he still had his fortune-telling skills. With just a few words, he told the leader of the group about his past experience. His words shocked the leader. That person did not dare to make a decision. So he escorted him into the city and reported it to the monarch. The monarch was overjoyed. Although he was also dubious, he still personally welcomed him into the palace. After a conversation, the monarch finally believed Shenjuli's identity as the overlord's boy. The overlord's boy was also something that could only be encountered by chance. The monarch immediately asked Shenjuli to be the nation preceptor of Jiyue country. Shenjuli wanted to use this identity to find the whereabouts of Ning Xuema and others, so he naturally agreed. The overlord's real name was probably only known by Ning Xuema. Others did not know, not to mention the people in this world. Therefore, Shenjuli asked them to call him the national preceptor of Juli, so that once they found Ning Xuema, she could trust him and enter the city with him. The great god's explanation was extremely concise. But Ning Xuema knew that when the great god had transmigrated to this world, he must have experienced some dangers before gaining their trust. He must have relied on his own experience and skills to obtain everything he had now. Fortunately, both of them were fine and had reunited. As long as the two of them were together, nothing else mattered. Great God, you came here 500 years ago. Could you use your telekinesis at that time? Ever since Little Apple hung tea, and I came to this world, our psychokinesis has completely disappeared. Only with psychokinesis could they enter outer space to search for the gate of time and space, and only then could they return to the Tianxi continent. Shenjuli shook his head. Back then, I was also accidentally swept here by the whirlpool, and lost all my psychokinesis. It's probably the same this time. How did you leave back then? It was still the whirlpool that took me away, Shenjuli answered. Can you summon the whirlpool? Ning Xuema was full of hope. Shenjuli shook his head. The whirlpool appeared very suddenly. It came and went very suddenly. Ning Xuema was speechless. It turned out that the whirlpool of time and space required great luck. Then when would they be able to return to the second mission? If the whirlpool never appeared again, would she and the great god be stuck here, and never be able to go back? Although she was with the Almighty, and could settle down anywhere, little Nianma was different. Chapter 2468. If they could not go back, would they not be able to see little Nianma again? If they could not complete the task given by the Great Master, they would have to maintain the appearance of a child for a long time. Shenjuli could roughly guess what she was thinking. He put his hand on her shoulder and said, Xuema, since we are already here, let's take it easy. There will be a way when we get there. He always felt that this time's travel was not as simple as it seemed. Perhaps it was a special arrangement. Ning Xuema looked at him. They had been husband and wife for so long that they had a telepathic connection. She suddenly had an idea. Great Master, do you think that the second task will be on this continent? Shenjuli leaned his head on her shoulder and closed his eyes lazily. Maybe. Ning Xuema looked outside again. Great Master, when you came here 500 years ago, was this the layout of this place? Shenjuli shook his head. No. Originally, there were 3 countries on this continent. Now one country is unified. His pair of clear eyes flashed with a touch of interest. It seems that Jiyue Kingdom used to be the strongest. Who was the king of Jiyue Kingdom? Ning Xuema began to gossip. Shenjuli knocked on the window with his fingers and shook his head. This unified Jiyue Kingdom is a bit interesting. The original king of Jiyue Kingdom was surnamed Ji. It was the second most powerful country on this continent. Huiyue Kingdom was the most powerful country, and Huiyue Kingdom was the most powerful country. Huiyue Kingdom was ruled by the Jun family. Although this unified country is called Jiyue Kingdom, the king is the direct descendant of the Jun family of Huiyue Kingdom, Jun Liuye. Ning Xuema widened her eyes. What do you mean? Did Jun Liuye become the son-in-law of Jiyue Kingdom, and then became the king? Shenjuli lay down in her arms. It's not that complicated. Jun Liuye used to be the crown prince of the Huiyue Kingdom. 3 years ago, he destroyed the Jiyue Kingdom and the Skymoon Kingdom. He then united the Yiming continent and established the new Jiyue Kingdom. Ning Xuema was speechless. Was Jun Liuya crazy? Since he had destroyed the other two nations, shouldn't it still be the Huiyue nation? Even if it represented a new dynasty, it should have a new name. Why did it change the name of the country to the one that he had destroyed? Inexplicably, she thought of the purple-robed man she had seen in the ice cave in the glacier. That man should be the monarch Jun Liuyi. That man was not ordinary at all. Logically speaking, he should not have done such a brainless thing. What was the point of him doing that? His subjects must have strongly opposed it at the beginning, but he was able to stand his ground against the objections of the masses to reach this step today. His ability to control people was not ordinary. Was there another reason for this? Ning Xuema thought of the woman in the ice coffin again, and a hint of curiosity rose in her eyes. Could all of this be related to that woman? The palanquin stopped in front of a majestic palace gate. Ning Xuema looked outside, and her pupil shrank. In front of the palace gate stood the civil and military officials, as well as the monarch of Jiyue Kingdom. Leading the way was a purple-robed man. He was tall, elegant, and incomparably handsome. It was the man she had seen in the ice cave. There was no need to ask. This man was the current monarch of Jiyue Kingdom, Jun Liuya. Ning Xuema carefully sized up the monarch. His eyes were slightly lowered. That pair of eyes that should be flowing with light were as quiet as an ancient well. Ning Xuema propped her chin up as she looked at him. It was as if she was looking at a beautiful red spider lily that had bloomed into plum blossoms. This was a rather contradictory person. The palace lanterns swayed, and the banquet was luxurious. Chapter 2469. This was a banquet to welcome the arrival of the imperial tutor, so it was naturally extremely grand. Hundreds of tables were set up, and all the civil and military officials of Jiyue country were present. Even the family members of the civil and military officials were all present. There were no empty seats in the main hall, and it was exceptionally lively. Ning Xuema, Shen Juli, and that monarch Jun Liuyi were all seated at the head of the table. The civil and military officials were seated according to their ranks. There were many orioles and swallows in the main hall, and it was very lively. Ning Xuema glanced at Jun Liuyi's side, and a meaningful look flashed across her eyes. At this time, the emperor's empress and concubines should all be present, but they weren't. Jun Liuyi was sitting there alone, without a single concubine by his side. Ning Xuema twirled her wine cup. This monarch looked to be around 23 or 24 years old. It couldn't be that he still didn't have a concubine, right? She swept a glance at the people below. There were several men, who looked like they had just turned 20, who already had concubines by their side. It didn't seem like this country was engaging in late marriage or late childbirth. Wine was naturally the best wine. The dishes were naturally the best dishes. Ning Xuema tasted the delicacies as she chatted with Shen Juli. Shen Juli's expression was indifferent, but he wasn't idle. From time to time, he would peel walnuts and pine nuts for her and place them in front of her. Ning Xuema unintentionally glanced down and saw several curious gazes looking at her and Shen Juli. Ning Xuema smiled and suddenly felt very comfortable. Originally, when she was with the great god, she would often receive the jealous and envious gazes of those women. Now, she only received a few strands of curiosity. Although the great god now was also devastatingly beautiful, he still had the appearance of a child. The great god didn't shy away from saying that Ning Xuema was his wife, so it naturally attracted the curiosity of those women and not covetous gazes. The covetous gazes of all the women were secretly glancing at Jun Liuya from time to time. It was very obvious that the single and handsome monarch was the idol that they wanted to entrust their lives to. These women were of all shapes and sizes, and there were all kinds of beauties. Everyone was trying their best to show off their best side in front of the king. Not only did they dress up meticulously, they were also looking for opportunities to show off their talents. In the name of making fun of the banquet, they would take the opportunity to present a song, dance, or play a song. There was even a talented woman who composed a poem on the spot, winning a round of cheers. These women could be said to have brought out their special skills. Even a blind person could see that they wanted to please the monarch. Junliuya had been sitting there the whole time. He drank cup after cup ferociously, but his expression did not change at all. His gaze was on the wine cup most of the time. Occasionally, he would glance at the women performing, but it was as if he did not see them. His eyes were extremely deep, like a deep pool of water. Even the lights in the hall couldn't reflect his eyes. It was as if in this mortal world, no one or anything could shake his heart. He was a monarch, but he was only a machine that ruled the country. He did not have his own emotions and emotions. The civil and military officials in the hall looked to be toasting each other, harmonious and beautiful, but their gazes and minds were all on their monarch. Every time a woman finished her performance, they would secretly observe Junliuya's expression with hope, but in the end, they would only be disappointed. It was very obvious that these officials also wanted these women's performances to arouse Junliuya's interest and let him take these women into his harem. Even if he didn't take in so many women, it would be good to take in one. Chapter 2470. As the women returned one by one, the officials' expressions became more and more serious. When the last woman in the hall finished her performance and failed to attract Junliuya's interest, one of the officials stood up and bowed, saying that he had a new dancer and had arranged a new song and dance specifically to welcome the arrival of the imperial tutor. These performers all used this as an excuse, so Junliuya naturally could not refuse. Shenjili was also strange. Others frequently used his name to do things, but he did not show any signs of displeasure. He just sat there lazily and watched the show. After a series of rapid drumbeats, a female dancer stepped into the arena. Ning Xuema's expression suddenly changed. The dancer was not wearing a normal dancer's costume, but a light pink muslin dress. Her eyebrows were like distant mountains, and her eyes were like autumn waves. Her appearance was extremely beautiful, but this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that this woman's face was very similar to someone. She was very similar to the woman in the ice coffin. Junliuya unintentionally glanced at the woman, and the hand holding the wine cup slightly paused. The woman's etiquette was very thorough. She bowed deeply to Junliuya, Shenjili, and Ning Xuema, and said a few words of congratulations that could not be wrong. Her voice was crisp, and had the softness of a Jiangnan woman. It was very pleasant to hear. Junliuya's lips curved slightly. It was unknown whether it was mockery or ridicule. He drank the wine in his cup in one gulp. The music started again. Junliuya had just picked up another cup of wine when he heard the music. His fingers paused again, and his emotionless eyes looked at the musicians on both sides of the hall. The musicians' hands trembled under his gaze, and they almost played a wrong note. Junliuya was very shrewd and hid his emotions very well. No one could tell whether his gaze was praise or disdain. No one could even tell whether he was happy or angry. After a prelude, the young woman danced to the music. Ning Xuema was an expert in this field. After watching for a while, she praised in her heart. This song was very good and could arouse people's emotions. The girl's dance was also very good. Every movement was done very well. It was very professional and pleasing to the eye. She glanced at Junliuya. Junliuya was drinking with his head propped up in his hand, his handsome face unreadable. A peeled tangerine suddenly appeared in front of Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema followed the tangerine and saw the ancestor's snow-white sleeve. It wasn't strange for the guru to peel oranges for her. But was it necessary for him to raise it in front of her? Almost rubbing her nose and covering her eyes, Ning Xuema preferred tangerines and took it. She had just peeled off a piece when the Almighty opened his mouth and looked at her with narrowed eyes. It was obvious that he was waiting for her to feed him. Ning Xuema had no choice but to put the orange slice into his mouth. She was so busy that she naturally forgot to look at Junliuya. By the time she finished feeding the guru, the dancers had just finished their song. Clap, clap, clap. Junliuya, who didn't react to any singing or dancing, suddenly clapped 3 times. The officials' eyes lit up, and they naturally clapped and cheered. Several officials immediately struck while the iron was hot and praised the girl. Virtuous and virtuous, beautiful and unparalleled. Countless words piled on the girl, praising her to the heavens and earth. In the end, They even said that the girl had the characteristics of a mother. There was only one meaning to all of this. This girl could be taken into the harem as a concubine and help the Jun family spread its bloodline. Chapter 2471. The woman knelt on the ground, naturally happy. Her eyes were bright, and her face was bright red. From time to time, she would look at Jun Liuya affectionately. It was as if she was waiting for him to open his mouth and let her become a phoenix. Ning Xuemo rubbed her chin, her eyes revealing her interest. These officials seemed to be itching for this emperor to quickly take in a harem. They were so hungry that they couldn't be choosy. They even praised a dancer as a flower. It was as if this emperor only needed to open his mouth and take a woman as his wife and concubine, and they would be satisfied. They wouldn't ask about the woman's status. Jun Liuya finally opened his mouth, but his voice was neither salty nor light. The music is not bad, and the dance is not bad either. He suddenly clapped his hands. Guards! 6 guards immediately stepped forward and bowed, waiting for orders. Take this woman and the musician who played this song away and behead them. As soon as the order was spoken, almost everyone was dumbstruck. The woman and the musician's expressions changed greatly. The woman blurted out, "Why? Your Majesty, why is this so?" Jun Liuya's expression was indifferent. He only said one sentence. "Are you worthy of this dance? Are they worthy of playing this song?" The woman and the musician were taken away by the guards without any explanation. Jun Liuya's gaze then fell on the official who presented the dancer. He twirled the wine cup between his fingers. "You've been demoted by 3 ranks and forfeited your salary for 3 years. Do you accept this?" How could the official dare to say no? His face was ashen as he knelt down to express his gratitude. He was demoted by 3 ranks and no longer had the right to stay in the hall. With this, the other officials didn't dare to say anything and lowered their heads. After dealing with all this, Jun Liuya seemed to be a little dispirited. He rubbed his forehead and looked at Shen Juli, who was sitting there calmly. "Imperial tutor, we can no longer hold our liquor. Can we leave first to sober up?" Shen Juli casually raised his wine cup. "It's getting late. This seat is also a little tired. We'll take our leave now." At this point the banquet naturally ended. Ning Xuema and Shen Juli sat in a sedan chair and headed to the residence of the imperial preceptor. When they arrived at the door, they saw 2 rows of civil and military officials standing there respectfully. When they saw the sedan chair, these people immediately knelt down. Before they even opened their mouths, they were already talking with tears and snot. "Imperial preceptor, we have something important to ask of you." Shen Juli did not get down from the sedan. He only lightly said, "Let's talk inside." In the main hall of the imperial advisor's residence. "Lord State Preceptor, His Majesty's governance of the country is extremely wise and brilliant. He is a rare good emperor. The only bad thing is that he has been the emperor for 3 years, but he is not willing to have a harem." "That's right, Lord State Preceptor. His Majesty doesn't even have an empress until now. If His Majesty doesn't have a harem, he won't have an heir. If he doesn't have an heir, he won't have an heir. If this goes on for a long time, what can he do? Our country is about to fall." "That's right. If this continues, the foundation of the country will be shaken." These officials knelt there and spoke passionately. They all talked about the disadvantages of the emperor not having a harem. Shen Juli sat there lazily and squinted his eyes. He did not say a word. It was not sure if he heard these people's words. Ning Xuema's fingers tapped the table rhythmically. After listening to them, she asked, "If so, why don't you try your best to persuade His Majesty?" These officials were angry and helpless. "Fairy, you don't know. In the past 3 years, many officials have tried to persuade His Majesty because of this matter. However, His Majesty does not allow them to talk about it. Once they talk about it, they will be punished. There have been dozens of officials who have been banished from the court because of this matter. There are also a few officials who are thinking about the country and the country. They even carried their coffins and tried to persuade His Majesty. However, His Majesty still does what he wants. We have no other choice, so we came to beg you." Chapter 2472. That's right, the state preceptor's status is extraordinary. His Majesty might listen to what you say. Yes, the state preceptor is incomparably revered in this continent. One sentence from you is worth 10,000 sentences from us. Ning Xuema suddenly interrupted them. I think you all are muddle-headed. You only forced your emperor to take in a harem. Did you not think about why he didn't do so? If you all can find the source of this matter and solve it, perhaps he will take in a harem. The ministers looked at each other. In the end, an old minister spoke up. This source. We know a thing or two about it. His Majesty was deeply in love with Princess Jiyu. After the princess died, His Majesty vowed to never marry. Princess Jiyu? That means the female corpse hidden in the ice coffin is Princess Jiyu? Jiyu country Princess Jiyu. Interesting. That princess was originally from Jiyu country? Ning Xuemo asked. The ministers paused for a moment then nodded. Yes. Ning Xuemo smiled. Your emperor is a rare infatuated man. Back then, when he fell in love with that princess, did you all obstruct him? The ministers. Someone sighed. Fairies' eyes are like torches. However, we weren't the only ones who obstructed this matter. It was the late emperor. After all, she was the princess of a fallen country. I'm afraid she had ulterior motives. The late emperor obstructed this matter for His Majesty's sake. Ning Xuema's lips curved up. That's good. You were afraid that she had ulterior motives. So you all succeeded in obstructing her. What else are you dissatisfied with? The ministers were about to cry. One of them blurted out. If we knew this would happen, we would rather have His Majesty marry that princess as his empress than have His Majesty remain single for life. If he married the princess, at least they could count on Jun Liuya to have an heir, unlike now. With the minister's urgency, as long as Jun Liuya was willing to take in a wife, they wouldn't care about that woman's identity. Ning Xuema looked at the ministers and slowly said, what if that Princess Jiyu could come back from the dead? The ministers were stunned. They looked at each other and almost said in unison, then we would be willing to treat her as the nation's mother. But how could it be easy for someone to come back from the dead? What's more, someone who has been dead for 3 years. This was even more unbelievable than the Arabian Nights. The ministers were discouraged again. It's a pity that people can't come back from the dead. Ning Xuema glanced at Shenjuli. Shenjuli had been drinking tea. He lazily turned the teacup in his hand and said, with me here, many impossible things can become possible. Everyone. When the ministers asked again, the great god refused to say anything more. He waved his hand and said, it's getting late. Send the guests off. Deep into the night. After meditating for a while, Ning Xuema opened her eyes and saw Shenjuli leaning on the bed, one hand supporting his head, looking at her. Ning Xuema flipped over and hugged him in her arms. She smiled and said, great God, do you have the confidence to revive that princess? She loved to hug little Shotas, especially the one in front of her. Shenjuli didn't struggle in her arms. He only raised his small hand and wiped her face. I'm sleepy. Go to sleep. Ning Xuema was still in high spirits. She pulled Shenjuli's small hand down and kissed the back of it. Great God, let's talk a bit more. Shenjuli looked at her and smiled. He suddenly pulled out his small hand and lifted her chin. You're so energetic? Do you want me to do something? Ning Xuema. Great God, you wretched child. Chapter 2473. She yawned and turned around. All right, let's sleep. Let's not talk anymore. Shenjuli smiled and closed his eyes. Ever since he returned to his youth, this girl had looked at him as if he was a furry pet, which made him unhappy. This was the only way to restrain her. He had already returned to his youth for 2 days. At most, he would return to normal in 1 more day. He was lying there thinking when a servant carefully reported, Imperial Tutor, His Majesty requests an audience. Shenjuli glanced at the night sky outside the window. This emperor had come faster than he had expected. He lazily said, it's too late, I won't see him. The servant outside was speechless. In the cloud underworld continent, His Majesty Jun Liuya was like a god of war. No one dared to go against him. No matter who he wanted to see, that person would eagerly rush over to pay their respects. No matter whose residence he visited, it would be a great honor for that person. and the entire residence would welcome him with open arms and open arms. But now, the imperial tutor actually refused to see the emperor just because it was too late. The servant did not dare to refute the imperial tutor's words, and could only return to Jun Luyi, who was still waiting in the living room. He trembled as he finished the imperial tutor's words. The emperor, who had come late at night, was silent for a while. Just when the servant thought that he was going to fly into a rage, the emperor turned around and sat down on a chair instead. He closed his eyes slightly. Then it's fine, I'll wait here. The servant was speechless. Time seemed to pass very quickly, but also very slowly. The dark window paper outside gradually turned light green, then white. Sunlight leaked in through the cracks in the window and danced in the living room. The emperor was like a silent rock, waiting in the living room from beginning to end. When the sky brightened, Ning Xuema followed Shen Jiuli to the living room. She saw Jun Luyi standing in front of the window with his eyes slightly lowered. No one knew what he was thinking. His tall and straight figure gave people a feeling of deep twilight for no reason. He suddenly felt something and raised his head. He saw Shen Jiuli and Ning Xuema, who had just walked to the door. His eyes lit up. He strode over and bowed. Imperial tutor, Luyi has something to ask of you. He called himself Flowing Knight, and not this emperor. Naturally, he was not speaking as the ruler of a country. Shen Jiuli walked over and sat at the head of the table. What's the matter? Liuya, I heard that the imperial tutor can make many impossible things possible. Can the imperial tutor bring the dead back to life? Jun Liuya's voice was slightly tense. It's not impossible to revive the dead, but not every dead person can be revived. Shen Jiuli's voice was indifferent. Who do you want to revive? Does the imperial tutor really have the ability to revive people? Shen Jiuli's words almost lit up Jun Liuya's eyes. He immediately replied in a trembling voice. My wife, Princess Jiyu. Although she has been dead for 3 years, her corpse, I have preserved it very well. It hasn't decayed at all. Imperial tutor. This seat doesn't need to see if her corpse is well preserved. As long as the conditions are met, even if her body turned to ashes, this seat can still revive her. Shen Jiuli interrupted him. Conditions for revival? What conditions? Imperial tutor. As long as you say it, this seat will use the power of the entire country to create these conditions. Shen Jiuli said word by word. The conditions are actually very simple. There are only 2 points. First, the deceased has not been reincarnated. Second, the deceased has a strong desire to stay in this world. Chapter 2474. Jun Liuya's face paled as he muttered. Her soul was scattered when she died. She shouldn't have been able to reincarnate. Shen Jiuli bent his finger. Then the first point has been achieved. What about the second point? Jun Liuya opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. The woman's figure seemed to flash before his eyes, as well as the words she said before she died. His heart, which had just gained a bit of hope, sank back into the abyss. Ning Xuema saw his expression and guessed something. She said, Your Majesty, there's no need to be too desperate. Sometimes women like to say one thing and mean another. Most of the time, although she says it resolutely, it may not be true despair. Her words made Jun Liuya's eyes shine again. He muttered, I hope so, Shen Jiuli said faintly. Whether or not she can be resurrected, I still need to see it for myself. I need to know the whole story. Jun Liuya paused and took a deep breath. I'm willing to tell you everything. Shen Jiuli stood up. You don't need to tell me. Didn't you preserve her body very well? Bring me to her body tomorrow. I have my ways to find out the truth. Although Jun Liuya didn't know what Shen Jiuli was selling, there was still hope for his beloved to be resurrected. He immediately agreed. The ice cave was as cold as ever. The girl in the ice coffin was still lying there quietly, as if she could come back to life with a single breath. Shen Jiuli held Ning Xuema's hand and walked slowly to the ice coffin. He had already returned to his human form. Strangely enough, not only did he recover his appearance, even his telekinesis had been restored. He was the one who brought Ning Xuema and Jun Liuya to the ice cave this time. Jun Liuya was naturally overjoyed by the imperial tutor's inhuman skill. His hopes for Princess Jiyue's resurrection increased by quite a bit. He didn't say anything else, and brought them here to ask the imperial tutor to cast the spell. Shen Julie glanced at Jun Liuye again. I want to read her memories about you. Are you sure you want me to do this? Jun Liuye's face was pale, but he nodded. Do as you wish, imperial tutor. However, Ning Xuema looked at Shen Julie in surprise. The great god seemed to have become much stronger. Now he could even read the memories of the dead. While she was thinking, Shen Julie's voice rang in her ears. Come and read with me. With one hand holding on to Ning Xuema, he placed his other hand on the ice coffin. A white light shone out and gradually enveloped the ice coffin. In front of Ning Xuema's eyes, it was as if a picture scroll had been unfurled. A picture from the perspective of the person in the coffin slowly unfolded before her eyes. Ji Yu walked into the room. A man in a purple robe was sitting behind a large sandalwood table. His eyes were downcast as he wrote a vigorous and powerful character on the fine rice paper. The man was wearing a silver butterfly-shaped mask, revealing only his light red lips and beautifully curved jaw. Even though Ji Yu had seen countless handsome men, she was still shocked when she saw this man. This man's aura was too strong. Even her father's aura wasn't as strong as his. She walked to the middle and suddenly felt nervous. She coughed lightly. Are you the #1 assassin? The man's hands didn't stop moving as he casually said, What's the matter? His voice was gorgeous and elegant, but it also carried a hint of seduction. Ji Yu had made countless drafts in her mind before coming here, but when she heard his voice, she was so nervous that she couldn't say a word. Her small face flushed red, her eyes turned, and her big black and white eyes lit up. Chapter 2475. She took off the bag she had been carrying all the way and threw it on the expensive sandalwood table with a bang. It made a loud sound. The man smoothly stepped back and dodged her stone-like bag. The half-written rice paper was pressed under the bag, and the high-quality weasel hairbrush was almost smashed in half. The man stood not far away and looked at her. In an instant he released a strong aura that made it hard for people to breathe. His eyes were like 2 ice arrows, and the aura around him was extremely cold. No one dared to be so presumptuous in front of him. Ji Yu suddenly said happily, It's you. She knew him. The purple-robed man raised his eyebrows and looked at the girl in front of him, who was wearing a pink robe and looked like a doll. The pink robe was made of 7 layers of good quality silk, and it flowed with light. However, it looked like a thin layer. She stood there like a peach blossom that just bloomed on a branch, with a stunning and pure aura. Ji Yu saw that the other party still did not react and she pouted. Did you forget me? 3 years ago outside Purple Moon City, you saved me once. Purple Moon City was the capital of Jiyu Country. Jiyu Country was the second largest country in the Cloud Underworld continent, and the current ruler was the Full Moon Emperor, Ji Yuntian. The purple-robed man's eyes flashed. It was her. He calmly sat back in his seat and pointed at the bag with his white jade-like finger. With a disgusted expression he asked, What is this? Ji Yu narrowed her big eyes and smiled. This is half of my savings. I was worried that it wouldn't be enough, but I didn't expect it to be an acquaintance. Haha, that's great. With our relationship, it should be enough to buy you, right? This little girl was very friendly. But she wanted to buy him? She was the first person who dared to have this thought. Interesting. The purple-robed man's eyes flashed with a trace of amusement. He supported his head with one hand and sat there lazily. The strong aura around him was not to be underestimated. His light red thin lips opened slightly. Little girl, what do you want to do? He raised his voice and a seductive aura came, with a trace of ambiguity and seduction. He just looked at her like this, his seductive peach blossom eyes rippling with light, making Ji Yu feel breathless. What a strange feeling. She shook her head to shake this strange feeling out of her mind. Then she said seriously, I want you to help me kill someone. If you help me kill him, I'll give you all my savings. The purple-robed man tapped his fingers on the sandalwood table. He seemed to be slightly disdainful as he used the pen to gently open her bag and casually glanced at it. A sea of glittering golden light. The colorful gems were all piled up together, reflecting a dazzling light under the light. Ji Yu looked up at him proudly. With so many gems, it should be enough, right? The purple-robed man's gaze paused at a certain spot, and a profound look flashed across his eyes. He looked at Ji with an inquisitive gaze, but it disappeared in a flash, so fast that Ji thought she was seeing things. In the blink of an eye, he returned to his lazy appearance and cruelly broke her hope. Not enough. Ji opened her eyes wide and said in disbelief. Not enough? Take a closer look. These are all high-quality gold and jewels. It's impossible that it's not enough. These were the best jewelry that her father had given her. Every one of them was a treasure that could only be found by chance. Chapter 2476. This person actually thinks it's not enough. The purple-robed man glanced at her and casually said, You invited me, so of course it's not enough. If you can't afford it, then please leave. Ji's big eyes kept rolling. Suddenly, she had an idea. But we are acquaintances. Since we're acquaintances, can't you help me? She even added a sweet smile after saying that. Ji looked at the purple-robed man with satisfaction. Her smile became even more adorable. She knew it would work. No matter how big of a mistake she made, as long as she acted coquettishly in front of her father, everything would be fine. Ji was really adorable. She never hid her emotions. All her emotions were written on her face. The purple-robed man easily saw her pride. He was indeed bewitched by this little girl's smile. But it was only for a moment. His eyes flashed and he said slowly, Oh, then do you know there's a phrase called killing acquaintances? He was satisfied to see Ji's smile freeze on her face. He leaned forward slightly, crossed his arms, and looked at her with a faint smile. And this one's favorite is killing acquaintances. You're shameless. Ji was so angry that she stomped her feet, but she couldn't find any words to refute. The purple-robed man smiled devilishly. You let me win. Ji choked and didn't know what to say. After an intense mental struggle, she suddenly closed her eyes in pain, and said with a pained expression, All right, then I'll give you all of my savings. It didn't matter if her savings were gone. Killing that person was the most important thing right now. Deal. His smile was as gentle as jade, but Ji felt disgusted no matter how she looked at him. Tell me, who do you want to kill? He lazily reclined in a comfortable chair. His tone was casual, as if he wasn't talking about killing people, but about the weather. Ji's little face became serious. She said word by word, Hui what country Ghostface Lord Jun Lu Yi. Ji suddenly felt cold. She looked at the stove in the room in confusion. It was burning quite well. The purple-robed man finally became serious and sat up straight. His sparkling peach blossom eyes flickered with an unfathomable light. His voice was light and indifferent, but no one could ignore it. Why do you want to kill him? Ji took a deep breath and said, I don't mind telling you, but you have to keep it a secret for me. The purple-robed man's eyes gradually deepened, like the deep blue sea. He said indifferently, The Dark Shadow Tower has always been good at keeping secrets. This one will naturally keep it a secret. His low voice was like the singing of a siren, empty and gorgeous, with a hint of temptation. Ji looked around and after confirming that there was no third person, she whispered, Because Father said. She suddenly became nervous. Seeing this, the purple-robed man didn't urge her. He just looked at her with a faint smile. Ji looked into his eyes and gradually lost herself. His eyes were like the most unpredictable glass, and also like a dazzling kaleidoscope. Ji shook her head and said, Because he's a bad guy. There was a long silence. The purple-robed man raised his eyebrows and looked surprised. And then, Ji gave him a strange look. And then you should go and kill him. She looked at him suspiciously. The purple-robed man was speechless. This little girl was really naive and cute. Chapter 2477. This little girl was really naive and cute. She looked like a child who had been taken care of since she was young. She was happy and innocent. He faintly glanced at her little bundle. She grew up in that place, yet she could still be so pure. His unfathomable look made Ji very nervous. Her little face tightened as she nervously asked, What's wrong? The purple-robed man unconsciously tapped the table with his hand. He lowered his eyes as if he was thinking about something. Ji became even more nervous, afraid that he would refuse. He suddenly asked, Your father. Why did he say that he's a bad person? Ji Yu's eyes turned as if she was trying hard to remember something. In the end, she honestly shook her head. I don't know. That day, she ran to the imperial study to play with her father. She accidentally heard her father talking to the prime minister about getting rid of Jun Luyi. What did he say about him? Wild ambition. She didn't hear anything else. When her father saw her run in, he waved his hand to dismiss the prime minister and coaxed her to sleep. Before she fell asleep, she unconsciously asked, Father, why do you want to get rid of Jun Luyi? Full Moon Emperor gently stroked her long hair and casually said, Because he's a bad person. Ji Yu wanted to ask more, but he changed the topic. Although she was asleep, she kept thinking about this problem in her heart. She wanted to help her beloved imperial father solve this problem, so she sneaked out of the imperial palace in the middle of the night with all her savings. She didn't meet a single bad person along the way and accidentally found Shadow Tower. The purple-robed man looked at her and smiled meaningfully. What a cute child. How could she not be kidnapped when she was so naive? Although Ji Yu felt that it was a bit strange, her good upbringing made her politely reply, Thank you. She thought about it and added, You have good taste. It was a typical response of a little princess. The purple-robed man was startled for a moment before he suddenly laughed. His laughter was clear and bright, like the moon rising from the clouds. It made people's eyes light up. Ji Yu was confused by his laughter. She unconsciously glared at him and fiercely said, Hey, what are you laughing at? She was just telling the truth. The purple-robed man waved his hand. It seemed that he was laughing until tears came out. He supported his head with his hand, his eyes still smiling. You are indeed adorable. Seeing how adorable you are, I won't take half of your savings, but... Ji Yu's eyes lit up and stars almost appeared in her eyes. But what? Although Ji Yu was doted on by thousands of people, and usually had a lot of gold, jade and jewels, she still loved gold very much and carefully preserved it. Even Imperial Father said that she was a little money grubber. The purple-robed man propped up his chin and gazed into the distance. I've heard that the scenery of Ziyu Inner City is incomparably beautiful, and I've always yearned for it. Purple Moon Inner City was located on Sky Moon Mountain, the tallest mountain in the Cloud Underworld continent. The reason why Purple Moon City was called Purple Moon City was because the moon here had a faint purple tint to it, making it incomparably beautiful. Every night, the purple moon hung in the sky. It was as large as a jade plate and shone brightly. It was one of the best in the Cloud Underworld continent. Ji Yu seemed to hesitate for a moment. You want to enter Purple Moon City? It was not easy to enter Purple Moon City. One needed to have the Moon God order issued by the imperial family to enter. Moreover, one needed to register. New faces had to be carefully checked for a day before they were allowed to enter. This was because the city gate had an extremely powerful barrier. Anyone who tried to force their way in would be struck by heavenly lightning and consigned to eternal damnation. Therefore, Purple Moon City could be said to be the most heavily guarded place in the Cloud Underworld continent. Chapter 2478. The purple-robed man smiled and said, I like to admire the moon when I have nothing to do. I've always regretted not being able to enjoy the best moon. The moon in the Purple Moon Inner City must be incomparably mysterious and beautiful. Unfortunately, I don't have the Moon God token, so I can only bury this long-cherished wish in my heart. He sighed. The sigh of a handsome man, especially one with such an earth-shattering appearance, could easily soften a person's heart and make them want to agree to all his requests. Ji Yu rolled her big eyes and said, But I only have one Moon God token. How can I get in if I give it to you? Why don't you change your request? The moon in Ji Yu country's 100 Spirit City is also very beautiful. The purple-robed man sighed and said, It's not the best. I'd rather not have it. Of the 3,000 weak waters, I will only take one ladle. Ji Yu seemed to be in a difficult position. Her eyes flickered intensely as if two forces were fighting. Seeing this, the purple-robed man sighed and waved his hand. He seemed to be a little disappointed and said, Forget it. Although the full moon is beautiful, I won't feel at ease if I make it difficult for a beauty. I'll bury this long-cherished wish deep in my heart. Jiyu pursed her lips tightly and didn't say anything. The atmosphere was a little awkward. The purple-robed man smiled gently and broke the ice. Every time I take a mission, I have to play for 3 days. The Star River waterfall in Wuxia country is very beautiful. Do you want to go with me? Jiyu was a little curious. Why do you have to play for 3 days first? Shouldn't you be relaxing after completing the mission? The purple-robed man rested his chin on his hand and smiled in a carefree and unrestrained manner. Because perhaps this will be the last time I'll go on a sightseeing tour. Jiyu's heart seemed to be pricked by a needle. She hurriedly said, "But aren't you the #1 assassin?" The purple-robed man's eyes seemed to be filled with countless clouds, making it impossible to see his emotions. He patted Jiyu's head and said meaningfully, "Little girl, everyone will die. It's better to have fun while it lasts. How about it? Do you want to go with me?" Star River Waterfall. Although there was still a faint smile on his lips, Jiyu could feel the disappointment under his smile. Although the purple-robed man changed the topic, Jiyu couldn't hear a single word. His slightly bitter smile was deeply imprinted in her mind, and her conscience couldn't help but blame herself. He returned half of his savings to her, and even helped her complete such a dangerous mission. He just wanted to admire the moon. Besides, I have the ability to help him. Imperial Father had said that one should pay attention to reciprocity. Since he had given her such a big gift, then she should return the favor. Jiyu raised her eyes and looked at him firmly. "Okay, I promise you." The purple-robed man was telling her about the beauty of the Milky Way waterfall. Hearing her words, he smiled faintly and said, "All right, then we will depart for the Wuxia kingdom tomorrow." Did he think that he had agreed to see the Milky Way waterfall? Jiyu shook her head and smiled mysteriously. "We're not going to the Wuxia kingdom. I'll take you to the Purple Moon City one day later. How can the Wuxia nation compare to our Jiyu nation? All right, what's your name?" The purple-robed man revealed a confident smile that was indescribably enchanting. "This one is Yi Qianshang." The next day, Jiyu was sitting in a tea house, leisurely drinking tea. She had snuck out with great difficulty, and everything was new to her, so she naturally didn't want to return to the palace so early. Chapter 2479. At the table beside her was a loving couple, who were whispering sweet nothings to each other, as if no one else was around. "I heard that the 1,000-flowing flower in the Lingxian Valley is about to bloom. Wife, shall we go and try our luck?" It's said that the 1,000-flowing flower only blooms once every 100 years. Its petals are crystal clear and layer upon layer like flowing light. But the Lingxian Valley is so big, can we find the 1,000-flowing flower? How do you know if you don't try? It's said that if a couple appreciates the blooming of the 1,000-flowing flower, they can be together for a long time. 1,000-flowing flower? Blooms once every 100 years. So magical? Jiyu's curiosity was immediately aroused. She looked at the couple and found that they didn't know any martial arts. They dared to enter the Lingxian Valley to look for the 1,000-flowing flower without any martial arts. Thinking about it, the Lingxian Valley shouldn't be dangerous. Jiyu's eyes turned back and forth. Finally, she slammed the table and said boldly, "Waiter, the bill." The Lingxian Valley was amazing. The scenery here was breathtaking. The scenery of all 4 seasons was present. Red maple, green pine, peach blossoms and plum blossoms bloomed one after another. There were faint clouds lingering all year round, like a paradise on earth. Jiyu rode a horse and strolled leisurely in the valley. She hummed a little tune and looked around in a good mood. She picked a flower and put it in her hair, or galloped on the horse and crushed the clouds on the ground. She was having so much fun that she had forgotten what she was here for. Unknowingly, she walked further and further away. There were fewer and fewer people, and the scenery became more and more breathtaking. Jiyu's martial arts were good, and she was fascinated by the scenery, so she didn't pay much attention. When she walked into the deep and remote peach blossom forest, there was no one left. She was a little tired from playing and wanted to go back. Just as she was about to turn around, she suddenly paused. There seemed to be something glowing not far away. Jiyu narrowed her eyes and carefully looked at the halo, but she couldn't see anything. What was that? The light seemed to be 7-colored. The conversation of the couple in the tea house unexpectedly appeared in her mind. Could it be the thousand-flowing flower? Ji-Yu's eyes lit up. It only blooms once every 100 years. She didn't expect to see it as soon as it opened. Ji-Yu was afraid that the horse would eat the flowers as grass, so she tied the horse to a tree and happily ran in that direction. The light in front was getting closer and closer. Not far away, a dark green snake was lying on the green grass. It hissed and flicked its tongue, ready to give the little girl a fatal blow. Ji-Yu ran over without stopping, as if she didn't notice the snake there at all. When the optimal distance was reached, the green snake suddenly shot up. Many people had lost their lives to its sudden attack, and this little girl was no exception. First, he felt a chill, then a sharp pain. Ji-Yu held a delicate silver dagger in her hand. She squatted down and poked the two halves of the green snake. She sighed, "I wanted to let you live, but this dagger was too fast." The snake that died with its eyes wide open. Princess Ji-Yu, as the apple of Emperor Yuan Yu's eye, had always been the apple of Emperor Yuan Yu's eye. Emperor Yuan Yu wanted to keep her in the palace to protect her from all dangers. However, Princess Ji-Yu didn't like women's work since she was born. She didn't know anything about zither, chess, calligraphy or painting, but she was very good with spears and short swords. The people who could bully her hadn't been born yet. She ran forward and killed several different snakes along the way. Finally, she arrived in front of the halo. Chapter 2480. That flower could be described as a miracle, with layers upon layers of sparkling petals fluttering in the wind. Like colored glass, it refracted seven-colored light, as if there were countless streams of light swimming in it. It was indescribably beautiful and moving. The orchid and musk fragrance of the flower spread out with the spread of the petals, like a drop of ink on a piece of paper, gradually spreading out, and the fragrance filled the entire forest. So beautiful! Ji-Yu couldn't help but exclaim. She carefully touched the flower with a small dagger, and the flower shook its body, as if it was dissatisfied with Ji-Yu's rough touch. Seeing that nothing strange came out, Ji-Yu finally felt relieved, and reached out her small hand to touch the flower petals. The flower petals shook in her palm, causing a slight itch. Ji-Yu liked it so much that she didn't know what to do. She wished she could put this flower in a jar and carry it with her. She suddenly patted her head, as if she had thought of something. It was almost Father's birthday. Father loved flowers and plants the most, and even wrote a lot of poems for them. If she presented this flower to Father, he would definitely be overjoyed. Thinking of this, Ji-Yu's eyes lit up. She poked the flower petals and said seriously, "Little flower, do you want to go home with me? I have many of your brothers and sisters at home. Look at how lonely you are here alone. If you didn't meet me, no one would appreciate you even if the flower bloomed and withered. How about this? If you agree, can you shake your body?" Ji-Yu looked like she was very easy to negotiate with. The thousand-flowing flower that was shaking in the breeze. Ji-Yu cheered, and a small shovel appeared out of nowhere. She carefully dug out the thousand-flowing flower and put it in a jar. She stood up and patted her sore legs. She held the flower and looked at it carefully under the sunlight. Looking at the crystal-clear flower in the jar, her big eyes narrowed with a smile. The soil under her feet was rapidly turning black. Before Ji-Yu could react, her body suddenly became empty, and then she fell uncontrollably into a big hole that appeared out of nowhere. This hole was nearly 100 meters deep. Ji-Yu kicked the wall with her feet, but it only slowed down the speed of her fall. Even so, Ji-Yu was still dizzy from the fall, and she fainted for a while before waking up. It was dark. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. Ji-Yu wasn't afraid of anything except for the dark. Her palace was always brightly lit. She instantly froze on the spot, her nerves so tense that she was about to collapse. She tried to stand up, but fell back again. She seemed to have broken her leg. "It hurts." His entire body was in pain. She touched his arm, and the slippery sensation under her hand made her tremble. She was bleeding. "Is there anyone there?" Her voice trembled as if she was about to cry. "Is there anyone up there? Save me. I fell into the hole." Her voice was replayed in the cave over and over again. After listening to it for a long time, A strange feeling slowly arose. Darkness was the best breeding ground for demons, and human senses would become extremely sensitive in such a situation. Jiyu always felt that there were countless eyes spying on her in the darkness. This feeling made her hair stand on end. Help! Someone save me! She couldn't hold it in any longer and screamed. Her tears fell like a broken string of pearls, and her voice was almost mournful. Someone save me! Chapter 2481. Someone save me! Wuxia! Someone save me! I am the princess of Jiyu country. If you save me, my father will reward you heavily. Save me! She cried over and over again, feeling more and more desperate. This place was too remote and desolate. Perhaps he could die here, and no one would notice. She suddenly stood up, enduring the pain, and wanted to run out. But before she could take a step, her legs went soft and she knelt on the ground. She was in so much pain that she gasped. Pain, blood, darkness, loneliness, and the shadow of death shrouded her. Jiyu felt like she was going crazy from fear. Who is up there? Wuxia, please save me. Jiyu curled herself into a ball and leaned against the wall, trembling. She cried so miserably that she almost couldn't shed any tears. Her stomach hadn't eaten anything for a day. She searched her clothes for a long time, but couldn't find anything to eat. So hungry, so painful, so tired. In this situation, even crying became a waste of energy. The excessive blood loss made her dizzy. She couldn't hold on anymore and fainted. Before she lost consciousness, her voice was small, full of grievance and fear. Father, save me. I won't pick flowers anymore. Wake up, don't sleep anymore. Jiyu felt like someone was patting her face. Her consciousness was hazy, and she couldn't wake up. A pill was delivered to her mouth. She subconsciously wanted to reject it, but for some reason, she swallowed it with a gulp. That pair of cold hands patted her face again. You won't be able to wake up if you continue sleeping. When did the maids become so bold? How dare they pat her face? Jiyu opened her eyes and said angrily, You are so big. It was dark. She was not in the palace now, but trapped in a deep cave then. Who was patting her? Was it a human or a ghost? Jiyu felt all the hair on her body stand up. She opened her eyes wide and shrank back. Who are you? Are you a human or a ghost? Her voice was trembling, but she pretended to be strong. The cave was too dark. Jiyu couldn't see anything even when she opened her eyes, but she could feel that there was a creature in front of her. There was a chuckle in front of her and a lazy voice. Of course I am a human. It could make a sound, it was alive. Jiyu breathed a sigh of relief, then suddenly rushed up, accurately threw herself into the man's arms, tightly hugging his waist and not letting go. Please save me. She urgently needed to hug something alive and hot to dispel the fear in her heart. That man seemed to be staggered by her, but he still had the time to tease her. A beauty throwing herself into my arms, how dare I not? Only then did Jiyu realize that she had actually thrown herself into the arms of a strange man, and even hugged his waist. She was so shocked that she jumped away. Lecher, let me go. However, she had forgotten that her leg was broken. Before she could jump up, she fell down. He fell to the ground with a bang sound. Jiyu was in so much pain that she couldn't get up for a long time. Tears were rolling in her eyes. She looked ahead in disbelief. Why didn't you catch me? He actually let her fall to the ground. And he didn't even help her. That person sighed, and his tone was rather infuriating. I was almost pushed down by Miss, but I was scolded as a lecher. I really don't dare to help you. Miss, it's better for you to get up by yourself. Chapter 2482. Jiyu blushed. She was the one who threw herself into his arms. Fortunately, he couldn't see clearly in the dark, so he definitely couldn't see her face. My leg is broken. I can't get up. Help me up, I definitely won't scold you this time. Jiyu said awkwardly. She waited for a long time, but that person didn't move at all. Hey, help me up. Jiyu subconsciously said. After thinking for a long time, she awkwardly added, I'm sorry. That person slowly walked over, but he didn't help her up. Instead, he picked her up. Her body was suddenly in the air, and she was startled. She reflexively hugged that person's neck, and her eyes were wide open. What do you want to do? That person laughed out, and his voice was charming and seductive. Don't look at me like that, little girl. If you keep looking, I'll have to do something even if I don't want to do it. Ji didn't know anything about these flirting words. She blinked her eyes, tilted her head, and asked in confusion, What do you want to do? Her long eyelashes fluttered as she looked at him. Her big eyes were pure and clear, and her cherry lips were as sweet as dew. She looked like a flower waiting to be picked. That person's eyes turned dark, and his gaze towards her had a trace of aggression. And this little girl was still recklessly teasing him. His lazy voice seemed to be a bit hoarse, and he breathed in her ear. For example, like this. Then a warm and soft thing gently touched her cherry lips. He wanted to leave immediately, but he was addicted to her beauty, and couldn't help but stick out the tip of his tongue, tracing her cherry lips. But in Ji-Yu's heart, it was as if a landmine had been thrown, and her little face instantly turned red. You. She couldn't say anything for a long time. She subconsciously wanted to struggle, and her uninjured left leg kicked his body. Her little hand also tried to push him. Let go of me. That person's voice was a bit hoarse. Little girl, don't move. His body seemed to be a bit hot, but Ji didn't know what was going on. She just wanted to break free from his embrace, and struggled even harder. If you move again, I'll throw you down. In the darkness, the sound of that person grinding his teeth could be heard, as if he was enduring something. Ji-Yu always had an inexplicable sense of danger. He immediately stopped moving. The man placed her against a stone wall, and then tore open her pants. Ji-Yu was shocked, and her voice changed. What are you doing? I am the princess of Ji-Yu country. If you dare to treat me like this, my father will definitely kill you. The man sneered and tapped her calf with his cool hand. What a great style. Just as she finished speaking, Ji-Yu felt a sharp pain in her right leg. It was so painful that tears instantly came out of her eyes, and cold sweat broke out all over her body. She leaned against the wall, and glared at the darkness in front of her. You will pay for what you did to me. The man knocked on her head and said, Little girl, you're biting Lu Dongbin like a dog. You don't know how to appreciate good intentions. He got up and walked outside. He was leaving. Ji-Yu's action was faster than her brain. She grabbed the man's sleeve and shouted, Don't go. I was wrong. At that moment, she also felt that her right leg seemed to be able to move. She understood that he wasn't taking advantage of her, but fixing her leg for her. Chapter 2483. But that person pulled out his sleeve and, as silent as he had come, quietly disappeared into the darkness. It was silent all around. Only the sound of her own heartbeat could be heard. Did he really leave? Ji-Yu abruptly got up, tears falling down her cheeks. She staggered forward. Don't go, don't give her a little hope and immediately break it. She couldn't see anything in the darkness, so she panicked and ran around like a headless fly. She didn't know how many times she fell, but she got up again and groped forward. Her right leg had just been fixed, so it wasn't suitable for her to walk much. Now that Ji-Yu kept walking and falling, the pain was even worse. Despair, overwhelming despair. He really left. Ji-Yu helplessly sat down on the ground. What should she do? She was alone again. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to die here. That's right. Since that person could walk, there must be a way. Ji-Yu's eyes lit up. She pursed her lips and stood up. Enduring the pain, she groped forward 2 steps. Suddenly, she bumped into a warm wall. That familiar voice sounded again, with a trace of cynicism. Little girl, you came to throw yourself into my arms again? You didn't leave. Ji looked up in surprise. Although she couldn't see him, she could smell the fragrance on his body. Different from his frivolous personality, he had a faint cold fragrance on his body, like the plum blossoms in the early winter snow, exuding the fragrance of plum blossoms, but with the cold taste of ice and snow, refreshing the mind. That person chuckled, but didn't say anything. Ji was so happy that she didn't know what to do. She grabbed his sleeve and felt uneasy, so she simply threw herself into his arms again, holding his waist tightly and muttering in a low voice. Now you can't run away. He patted her head, a trace of deep thought in his eyes, but the words he said were a bit annoying. I say, Your Highness, can you just throw yourself into someone else's arms? Ji Yu wanted to let go of her hands and maintain her princess's modesty. But in this deep underground where she couldn't see her fingers, modesty was nothing. So even though she was blushing, she still insisted on hugging him and hanging on to him like a koala bear. He desperately tried to find an excuse for himself. You came to save me, so you're not someone else. You're my savior, and I'll treat you with the same respect as my father. What kind of messed up logic was this? The man seemed to be speechless. He rubbed his forehead and said, Don't. I'm still young. I don't want to have a daughter out of nowhere. Ji Yu stepped on his foot angrily and said, I said I will respect you, not to be your daughter. She felt that she had stepped on him a little too hard, and her heart skipped a beat. Would he get angry and abandon her again? Ji Yu was really afraid of being alone, and her small hands unconsciously tightened a little. The man did not take the kick to heart at all. He even rubbed her hair in a good mood. Looks like your leg has recovered well. In another 2 days, we should be able to leave this place. 2 days? Ji Yu almost jumped up. So long. That person said leisurely. Otherwise, with your current injured appearance, you will fall down before you can even get halfway up. Ji Yu subconsciously said, Don't I still have you? The man chuckled. Little girl, you really think highly of me. Unfortunately, I was seriously injured in order to save you, so I can't take you away. Chapter 2484. Ji Yu subconsciously touched his arm. Where are you hurt? I'll bandage it for you. That person's lips curled as he tapped her head. Can you see? Can't see. Ji Yu obediently shut up. That person pulled her to sit on the ground and softly ordered, We'll be staying here for 3 days. You'll be able to last longer if you meditate here. After saying this, that person closed his eyes and focused on meditating. Ji Yu sat quietly on the side, her small hand gently grabbing his sleeve. No matter what, she was no longer alone. Her fear had dissipated quite a bit, and she felt like she was about to enter the stage. Her stomach rumbled, and Ji Yu felt so hungry that she was flustered. She wanted to tug at him, but she was afraid of disturbing his meditation. Her stomach was so hungry that Ji Yu tightly grabbed his sleeve, wondering if she should tug at him or not. A white pastry exuding a fragrance appeared in front of her. That person lazily said, The princess is hard to serve, eat. Ji Yu rolled her eyes at him before happily picking up the pastry and eating it in small bites. After an unknown amount of time, she suddenly patted her head and grabbed that person's sleeve as she anxiously said, Let's go out tomorrow, all right? That person raised a brow. Why? Ji Yu looked a bit anxious. I promised to bring someone out to play tomorrow. If she didn't keep her promise, Yi Qianshang might not kill Jun Luyi. That person's voice was a bit strange as he slowly said, Little girl, don't tell me you still don't know who I am? Ji Yu could hear the sound of gritting teeth from his voice. She looked at him in a daze. Who are you? I asked from the beginning, but you didn't tell me your name. Yi Qianshang. Ji Yu felt like she was about to smoke from thirst. The water Yi Qianshang brought wasn't enough for the two of them. Even if he gave all the water to her, it still wasn't enough for her. She could go a day without eating, but she definitely couldn't go a day without drinking water. Her consciousness was hazy, and her head was dizzy. She seemed to see the god of death waving at her. A sigh seemed to come from the darkness. After a while, a kettle was handed over. Yi Qianshang's voice was a bit weak, but he was still calm as if nothing was bothering him. Drink. Ji Yu subconsciously took the water bottle, like a person who had been dry for a long time and finally met the first rain. The water seemed to have a strange fishy sweetness, but her brain was not working, so she naturally did not feel it. Whenever Ji Yu felt extremely thirsty, Yi Qianshang would always bring out a pot of water. But later on he stopped talking. Her consciousness was also on the verge of blurring. After an unknown period of time, Yi Qianshang patted her face. Little girl, wake up, we're leaving. Ji Yu swayed for a while before she came back to her senses and stood up blankly. With a low sigh, she suddenly felt her body become light, and then her whole body flew into the air. That person's lazy voice came from above. Hug me. Jiyu obediently hugged his neck. The wind whistled, and she could feel that his body seemed to be a little sweaty. Close your eyes, he ordered again. Jiyu obediently closed her eyes. Her eyes lit up, and then she felt her feet land on the ground. Open your eyes. You seem like you're waiting for me to kiss you. Yi Qianshang teased her. Chapter 2485. Jiyu opened her eyes, and her vision went from hazy to clear. There was a peach blossom forest in front of her, and her horse had already run away. There was a large hole not far away where she had fallen in. She revealed a tired smile. Great. We're out. Before she could finish her sentence, her entire body went limp and collapsed. When she was about to fall to the ground, she fell into a cold and fragrant embrace. It was like a plum blossom that bloomed in the cold, bringing with it an icy aura. He caught her this time. Jiyu thought in a daze. Jiyu was awakened by her craving. There was a fire in front of her, and there was a skinned rabbit on the fire. The rabbit meat was roasted until it was golden yellow, and the oil dripped into the fire, making crackling sounds. The fragrance of the meat spread for 10 miles, and woke Jiyu up from her craving. Jiyu stared at the meat on the fire. She hadn't eaten in a long time, and she was so hungry that her heart was scratching. You're awake? A casual voice sounded. Jiyu followed the rabbit meat, and saw a hand as white as jade. Then, she saw a wide purple robe embroidered with cloud patterns. Then, under the exquisite butterfly mask, that person had a faint smile on his face. That person took out a handkerchief and tore off a rabbit leg to throw to her. Here, this is for you. The fragrance was overflowing. The color was golden yellow. It was fat but not greasy. It was even better than the top chefs in the royal palace. Jiyu was moved to tears. She took a bite of the rabbit meat before looking up at him. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. Why are you so good to me? Yi Qianshang's lips curled into a smile. Is it good? Jiyu nodded. Delicious. Too delicious. The smile on his lips deepened. Like feeding a pet, he gave her another rabbit leg. Then eat more. How could she accept this? He hadn't eaten a single bite yet. Jiyu wanted to refuse, but she heard him slowly say, the other half of the rabbit meat I exchanged for, eat more. What? Jiyu reflexively wanted to throw the rabbit meat back, but she paused after thinking about it. She glared at him before taking a bite of the meat. The world was big, but food was the biggest. Not to mention he had saved her life. Jiyu could afford it. Yi Qianshang laughed as he looked at Jiyu with mischievous eyes. You're really willing this time. Jiyu continued to eat and ignored him. When she was almost done, Yi Qianshang handed her another piece of roasted meat. Jiyu's eyes lit up and she was clearly tempted, but she shook her head. I can't afford it. Half of her savings could be exchanged for 2 rabbit legs. She couldn't afford it. How did this child grow up to be so innocent and adorable? Yi Qianshang couldn't help wanting to rub her head. But he couldn't do it because there was a bonfire between them. The moon was still bright, and there was a beauty by his side. He suddenly opened his mouth and asked casually, Little princess, can you dance? Jiyu. Yi Qianshang looked at her with disdain. You can't even dance? Jiyu rolled her big eyes. The princess dance is a priceless treasure. How are you going to pay for it? Yi Qianshang casually turned the roasted meat in his hand, and the unique fragrance of rabbit meat spread out. Jiyu couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. His voice had a strange texture, like a fox in the night. If I'm satisfied, I'll give this rabbit meat to you for free. Jiyu's eyes lit up. Then you don't want half of my savings. Chapter 2486. Yi Qianshang revealed a gentle smile. But it was filled with foresight. It depends on your performance. Jiyu clapped her hands and stood up. She revealed a proud smile to Yi Qianshang. This princess dance will definitely satisfy you. Yi Qianshang took out a wine gourd from somewhere and laid down on the grass. His clothes were a bit messy, revealing his smooth marble chest. His peach blossom eyes shined with a captivating aura as he said with a soft smile, Oh, then I'll wait and see. He raised his head and took a sip of wine. His movements were natural and unrestrained, but he was still elegant. Seeing this scene that made people's hearts beat faster, Ji quickly turned her face away. Was he the reincarnation of an enchantress? Ji stood in a peach blossom forest. Smelling the fragrance of the petals and the sound of the birds, she danced. The petals fluttered and stuck to her pink dress. The flower beauty was even more beautiful. She was like a peach blossom fairy dancing with the flowers, and the moonlight as her companion. The moonlight was hazy as it scattered down on the world. The moonlight seemed to have a texture as it covered her in a layer of hazy moon veil. Twirling, kicking, bending. At the end of the dance, Ji suddenly threw the petals in her hand into the sky. The petals fell like rain, and the woman's smile was like a flower. Ji stood in the middle of the petals and revealed a proud smile to Yi Qianshang like a proud kitten. How is it? Isn't this princess the #1 dancer in the world? Little Princess Ji was the most proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, tea, dance, and flowers. Yi Qianshang looked at her in a daze under the moonlight. Pink clothes, black hair, starry eyes, and cherry lips. She was covered in moonlight as she smiled. Truly an enchantress. He slightly curled his lips and raised the jade gourd as he sincerely praised. You are worthy of your reputation. Ji had been with him for a long time, and this was the first time she heard him praise her instead of insulting her. She couldn't help feeling a bit proud. His pride lasted for 3 seconds before his voice slowly sounded with a trace of carelessness. Little princess, have you noticed that your pants are torn? Ji was stunned. She looked down and saw that her white calves were exposed. When the wind blew, it was a bit cold. Rogue. Ji abruptly turned around, her face flushed red. That person's unruly laughter came from behind her, accompanied by his slightly demonic and somewhat low voice. Little girl, if I were a hoodlum, it wouldn't be just this. Ji ran away like a frightened rabbit. A strand of slippery fabric floated over with the wind and landed on her calf. Ji was stunned for a moment before picking it up. The purple cloth flowed with light under the moonlight. Ji touched it and knew that it was heavenly silkworm silk. This person was really rich. Yi Qianshang's lazy voice came from behind her with a playful tone. I'd rather ruin my robe than let the princess expose herself. Ji's face blushed. She silently tied the robe around her legs. The size was just right. It was obviously a cool material, but Ji felt a little hot. This warm current flowed from where the belt touched the skin, all the way up to the heart. Although this person had a vicious tongue and was frivolous, he was very attentive. That belt still carried his cool plum fragrance, and it wrapped around her like a strand of silk. Ji sniffed herself and muttered, I smell like you. Yi Qianshang's eyes moved as he looked at the girl sniffing his clothes under the moonlight. When he heard her unconsciously teasing words, his heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat, making him feel a bit itchy. Chapter 2487. He revealed an unfathomable smile. Little princess, come over here a bit. Do what? Ji took a few steps towards him and looked at him in confusion. Her large eyes sparkled as they were filled with doubt. Yi Qianshang's lips curled, revealing an unknown smile as his fingers unconsciously tapped his knee. Alarm bells rang in Ji's mind. She wanted to run with her sixth sense, but she was caught off guard and her entire body fell onto Yi Qianshang's body. There was a flash in front of her eyes, and she was pressed down by him. What are you doing? Seeing the handsome face that was gradually enlarging in front of her, Ji's heart skipped a beat as she shouted. Yi Qianshang looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile as he moved closer and closer. He stopped when he was a leaf away from Ji's nose. His eyes were deep like an unpredictable lake. He slowly opened his mouth, and his voice was like the song of a sea demon. It was magnificent and had a seductive aura. Little princess, what is your name? His breath fell onto her ear, and her small and cute earlobe slowly turned red. She raised her leg to kick him away. Let go of me. Yi Qianshang easily stopped her restless leg. His eyes were deep and his voice was a bit hoarse. Don't struggle, don't resist. Otherwise you won't want to know what will happen next. Ji wanted to ask what would happen next, but she suddenly thought of the consequences of asking last time. She obediently closed her mouth. Yi Qianshang's expression looked a bit regretful. He opened his mouth and his tone was a bit puzzled. You're not curious? Wasn't this child easy to trick before? Why didn't she jump into the pit now? Ji Yu shook her head like a rattledrum. What a joke. She was just naive, not stupid. Yi Qianshang's eyes were a bit dangerous. His finger brushed across her cherry blossom lips, and his eyes became even deeper. Ji Yu felt like she was about to be eaten. She threw away her armor and surrendered. I'm called Ji Yu, Ji Yu. Seeing her pink little mouth open and close, Yi Qianshang's eyes flashed with passion as he lowered his head to kiss her. Ji Yu's eyes widened. She had already said her name. Why was this person still like this? Taking advantage of Ji Yu's momentary daze, Yi Qianshang pried open her teeth, and his nimble tongue drilled into her mouth. He gave her an overbearing kiss before wrapping around her soft skin. The shallow taste he had in the cave was not enough to satisfy him. This time, he carefully tasted Ji Yu's taste. It was as fresh as nectar, causing him to linger on. Ji Yu's body went limp from his kiss, and her face turned red. It was a passionate kiss. She was completely dumbfounded. At first, she wanted to resist, but in the end they suffered a crushing defeat, and were utterly defeated. A warm current flowed through her limbs and bones, and the numbness and itchiness exploded along her spine. It was as if electricity was running through her body. She wanted to push him away, but her little hands were weak and powerless. She could only push weakly against his chest, looking as if she wanted to resist, but was also welcoming him. Yi Qianshang suddenly got up and ended the kiss. His eyes were as deep as the sea, and they were filled with intense emotions. He calmed his surging emotions and cursed. Enchantress! Ji Yu took in large mouthfuls of fresh air. It took her a while to catch her breath, but she still felt pressured. When she looked up, she met that person's aggressive eyes. She was first surprised before becoming angry. Why are you still pressing down on me? Get off. Chapter 2488. Yi Qianshang was very obedient this time. He stood up and looked at Ji Yu with a complicated gaze. Ji Yu glared at him and tidied up her clothes. Her large eyes were filled with anger, grievance, and confusion. Why did he suddenly kiss her? Royal father said that only her husband could kiss her. He didn't say he wanted to marry her. Any kiss that wasn't for the sake of marrying her was a hooligan. She was angry for a while, but that person returned to his casual appearance. Her large eyes turned, and she suddenly revealed a sweet smile as she walked towards Yi Qianshang step by step. Imitating her mother's appearance when she saw her royal father, Ji Yu revealed a sweet smile as she walked over. Yi Qianshang raised his brows. Did this little girl's personality change? But his eyes couldn't help falling on her. She was covered in moonlight, and looked like a fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. She was pure and charming. She walked in front of him and revealed a smile. Qianshang, do you like me? His mind shook when she called him Qianshang. He looked at the stunning face in front of him, and became a bit absent-minded. Why didn't he notice before that this little girl had such a charming side? She even learned how to flirt without a teacher. Yi Qianshang revealed a charming smile. Naturally I like you. Ji Yu's little face turned red. She looked up and revealed a charming smile. Then will you marry me? Yi Qianshang was stunned. Although she already knew the answer, Ji Yu still felt a bit uncomfortable when she saw his silence. Ji Yu sighed and seemed a bit worried. Royal father said that only my husband could kiss me. But you kissed me. Her eyes were filled with accusation as she looked at him. So this little girl was forcing him to marry her? Yi Qianshang slightly curled his lips. When he wanted to say something, he felt a sharp pain in his foot. The charming seductress immediately turned into a proud kitten. Ji Yu took the chance when he wasn't paying attention to stomp on his foot, before quickly kneeing him. She was satisfied to see Yi Qianshang's face turn green. She revealed a cute smile and spat out her unfinished words. Humph! Daring to act like a hooligan to this princess, you have to pay the price. Yi Qianshang looked at her before silently lying on the side and closing his eyes to rest. Actually, she didn't really go against him. Yi Qianshang was just coaxing her. However, when he saw how proud she was, he decided to let her be proud for a while. Ji Yu was proud for a long time, but no one came to support her. She couldn't help feeling a bit bored. So she found a seat far away from Yi Qianshang. She had just woken up and was not sleepy at all. Therefore, Her pair of big eyes darted around, sizing up her surroundings. In the end, his gaze involuntarily fell on that person. He looked like he was already in deep sleep. His long eyelashes covered his eyelids, and his light red lips were slightly pursed. The silver butterfly-shaped mask looked hazy and mysterious under the moonlight. Ji-Yu's curiosity was aroused again. Why was he wearing a mask? Was it because it was too ugly? Impossible. Although she couldn't see his face clearly, Ji-Yu was sure that he was definitely more handsome than any man she had ever seen. That's right, he was an assassin, so he naturally had to hide his true appearance. However, there was no danger now. Should she help him take off his mask? Wearing a mask all day must be uncomfortable, right? Then again, he had already kissed her, so she had the right to see his true appearance. Ji-Yu desperately encouraged herself in her heart. Chapter 2489. Ji-Yu desperately encouraged herself in her heart. He was asleep, so if she moved gently and put it back on him, he definitely wouldn't notice. Ji-Yu got up and slowly walked over. As she got closer, Ji-Yu's heart beat faster, almost jumping out of her chest. She patted her chest with her little hand, desperately trying to comfort herself. It's fine. He's asleep." He still had a smile on his face, looking perfect and charming. Ji-Yu carefully squatted down and slowly reached out her hand. At this time, a crackling sound came from the fire, scaring Ji-Yu so much that her heart almost stopped. She quickly took back her hand, and her large eyes opened wide as she nervously looked at Yi Qianshang. Yi Qianshang acted like he didn't notice and was still sleeping. Ji-Yu was still a bit worried as she softly called out, "Yi Qianshang, are you asleep?" Her voice was as small as a kitten's. She called out a few times, but he didn't respond. Ji-Yu finally relaxed and boldly took off his mask. Her actions were very rough. "Ji-Yu." She stared at her hand and was a bit stunned. What was going on with her? Didn't she say to be gentle and careful? He would definitely wake up like this. Ji-Yu didn't dare look over. "You took off my mask, but you didn't look at me. Little girl, what are you thinking?" Yi Qianshang's lazy voice sounded. She was caught. Ji-Yu suddenly closed her eyes and her long eyelashes trembled. "I didn't see anything." She threw the mask over and kept her eyes closed. "Quickly put it back on, I won't look." She might be silenced if she saw the true face of the #1 assassin. What was she thinking before? Yi Qianshang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He played with the mask in his hand before putting it back on and casually saying, "It's too late." Ji-Yu angrily opened her eyes and met his sparkling eyes. "I didn't see anything at all. Moreover, I returned the mask to you. What else do you want?" Yi Qianshang looked at her with a bit of playfulness as he pulled her over. "No one has ever dared to take off my mask. You are the first." Ji-Yu looked at him in fear, but she didn't dare resist. He looked at her, who was as stiff as a block of wood in his arms, and chuckled. "You have two paths. One is death." A pair of jade-white hands were placed on her tender neck, bringing with it a slightly cold breath. Ji-Yu felt goosebumps all over her body. "What about the other one?" Ji-Yu hurriedly asked. Yi Qianshang kissed her cherry blossom-like lips before revealing a charming smile. "Marry me." Huh. Ji-Yu was a little confused. Didn't he just reject her? Why did he want to marry her now? If he were to agree just like that, he would feel a little embarrassed. Propose now? It was too late. Ji-Yu closed her eyes and didn't say anything. She didn't say anything, so he kissed her again and again. He sucked on her cherry red lips, and then delved into her mouth. Ji-Yu bit down, but his tongue swam out like a slippery fish. And then came in again. Ji-Yu gradually felt suffocated. She was forced to open her eyes and glared at him. "Didn't you say you didn't want to marry me?" Yi Qianshang curled his lips into a smile. "You should let a man propose, little girl." He lowered his head and kissed her again. After the kiss, Ji-Yu was panting. Chapter 2490. This little girl was too seductive. Seeing her crying appearance, he couldn't help wanting to bully her. He couldn't control himself. If she hadn't fainted, he wouldn't have been able to control himself and would have taken her here. There were several coughs that came from his embrace. Ji Yu coughed until her eyes were filled with tears. Yi Qianshang held her in his embrace and gently patted her back. Ji Yu's eyes were still a bit hazy when she opened them. Her eyes were purple, and it took her a while to realize who this person was. The person who bullied her until she fainted. Ji Yu fiercely bit down. Yi Qianshang almost unconsciously slapped her away. He said in a deep voice, "Let go." Ji Yu fiercely bit down and didn't let go. Yi Qianshang's tone was a bit dangerous. "Little Ji Yu, if you keep biting, I can't guarantee that I won't bully you again." Feeling the person in his embrace let go, his lips curled. His chest gradually became wet, and a large patch was soaked. Yi Qianshang was stunned. He pulled her away and saw a crying little face. His heart ached and he couldn't help softening his tone. "Little Moon, why are you crying?" Ji Yu didn't have the energy to correct him. She was crying so miserably that she was out of breath. Other beauties were delicate and beautiful when they cried, but this one was crying like a little kitten. Yi Qianshang let out a sigh and held her in his embrace. He was a bit helpless and pampering. "Don't cry, I won't bully you anymore." Ji Yu was choked with sobs as her voice came out intermittently. "Before, you bullied me so ruthlessly. I only bit you once, and you were fierce to me. Woo woo woo. I don't want to marry you." Her voice was filled with complaints. "Want to take this chance to break the engagement?" Yi Qianshang tidied up her clothes bit by bit, covering her body. He stroked her long hair and comforted her in a low voice. "I was too impatient. Don't cry. I'll treat you well in the future." Although he was burning with desire right now wasn't the time. The beauty was in his embrace, but he could only look and not eat. Ji Yu cried for a while, and took this chance to break the engagement several times. Yi Qianshang comforted her the entire time, but he didn't respond to her words. She felt a little bored crying, so she stopped crying. She sat in his arms, tears still hanging from her long eyelashes, like an exquisite doll. Her voice was still nasal. "Do you really want to marry me?" Yi Qianshang raised his hand and scratched her nose. "You've already kissed me and touched me. Why are you still asking?" Ji Yu suddenly looked up at him, her big eyes showing a rare seriousness. "I like you very much, I admit, although we've only known each other for a few days. I know I'm not being reserved, but I'm just like this. If I like you, then I like you. If I don't like you, then I don't like you. I like you, so I want you to marry me." Yi Qianshang was startled. He pulled out a smile. "Of course I will marry you." Ji Yu shook her head and looked at him seriously. "You don't have to rush to make a promise. Let me finish first." Yi Qianshang's gaze was a bit complicated. Ji Yu closed her eyes and said, "If you want to take responsibility because you kissed me, then there's no need. You can leave now and I won't blame you. But if you marry me rashly and don't love me, then in the end, you betray me." Chapter 2491. Ji Yu's eyes were serious as she said word for word, "I will hate you for a lifetime, and I will make you pay the price." Her voice was soft, but her words were firm. Yi Qianshang's eyes moved as he silently looked at her. Ji Yu firmly looked at him, not backing down at all. Although she was naive and didn't understand the world, she would bet her life on love. Either love for a lifetime and grow old together, or they would grow to hate each other and bury each other. Her feelings for Ji Yu had always been simple and clear. Yi Qianshang gave a sigh and revealed a look of regret. "It seems like this playboy will be hung on a tree like you." Ji Yu pursed her lips and didn't say a word. Yi Qianshang gave a laugh and pulled her into his embrace. He stroked her hair. "Little Moon, I like you, so I want to marry you. It isn't an impulsive decision." He lowered his head and kissed her eyes. Yi Qianshang won't let you down." That night, he held her, and she listened to his heartbeat the entire night. It was steady and powerful. She thought that he would be her husband in the future, someone she could rely on. Ji Yu hugged his neck and revealed a proud smile. "You are mine from now on. You can only love me and spoil me. I'll leave a mark first." She gave him a kiss on the cheek. They played in Ji Yu's country for 3 days, and they had a lot of fun. Ji Yu had never been this happy before. They enjoyed the mist together, sat on the top of a mountain, and watched the sunrise and sunset. The golden light scattered across the continent, They watched the waterfall fall that was like an upside-down river. They enjoyed the scenery during the day and slept in each other's arms at night. Other than the last step, they did everything they should and shouldn't do. Every time they reached a critical moment, Ji Yu would call for them to stop. She wanted to save herself for their wedding night and give herself to him in one piece. Although Yi Qianshang was about to explode from holding it in, he still listened to her and stopped. He hugged her to calm his surging emotions, and then began to take advantage of her. Purple Moon City. The river of stars was bright, and the moon was high in the sky. A silver and purple moon hung high in the night sky. The silver and purple splendor sprinkled down, creating a dreamlike scene. The streets were bustling with carriages and horses. Countless people were walking back and forth happily, wearing new clothes and congratulating each other. Not far away, gongs and drums shook the sky. Dragons and lions danced, and large red lanterns were hung high. Countless bright and beautiful fireworks exploded overhead, leaving the whole sky gorgeous. The fiery tree Silver Flower never sleeps. The two of them had changed their appearances. Yi Qianshang changed Ji Yu's appearance into that of an ordinary little girl. She was bouncing in front with a pink dress that made her look like a juicy peach, exuding an alluring fragrance. She turned around, her small face full of excitement. Qianshang. Here. She picked up a hairpin and proudly shook it. She revealed a cute smile to Yi Qianshang. Qianshang, do you think I look good with this hairpin? How could she not be beautiful? Yi Qianshang ruffled her hair and then raised her chin, pretending to sigh. You're beautiful, but it's a pity. Your hair is messy like a chicken's nest. Ji Yu puffed up her face in anger. Isn't it all because of you? Bad guy. Yi Qianshang revealed an evil charming smile that overshadowed the entire world. If this one is a bad guy, then what about you? A bad guy's beauty? Chapter 2492. Even with Ji Yu's nerves, she could tell that this person was teasing her. Her little face turned red as she angrily rolled her eyes at him before running forward. Yi Qianshang laughed and chased after her. Run slower, don't get lost. Ji Yu angrily ran forward, running far away in a single breath. She turned around, but there was no trace of that person. He didn't catch up. Ji Yu's heart was filled with indescribable disappointment. Her heart was filled with anger and grievance. She kicked an innocent stone and charged forward. She was caught off guard and fell into the cold embrace of a plum blossom. Her nose turned sour and she almost cried. Her chin was lifted and her eyes were filled with tears. There was a sigh from the person above her. You want that hairpin that much? You want to cry. Ji Yu actually didn't want that hairpin that much, but hearing that person's helpless and pampering tone, she suddenly felt wronged. She lowered her eyes and didn't say a word. Her little feet restlessly kicked the stone for fun. A white jade hairpin suddenly appeared in front of her. The carving was smooth, and the phoenix on the hairpin was lifelike. It was the hairpin from before. Ji Yu's eyes opened wide and she snatched it. She happily played with it in her hands and revealed a large smile to Yi Qianshang. I knew you were the best. Her eyes were filled with a starry sky that was shockingly bright. Yi Qianshang was stunned for a moment before narrowing his eyes and saying in a threatening voice, Little moon, you can only smile at me like this in the future. Do you understand? The lethality was too great. It was no use even if he changed her appearance. She would still look like a pure and charming enchantress. Ji Yu giggled and said, Are you jealous? Her heart was filled with sweetness. Yi Qianshang suddenly lowered his head and kissed her. It was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. He revealed an evil smile. Little moon, there's no benefit in making me jealous. Ji Yu's eyes opened wide as she covered her mouth and looked around. After making sure no one was paying attention, she glared at him. Ji Yu definitely didn't know that her shy and angry gaze was even more seductive than a direct invitation. Yi Qianshang's beast blood was boiling. Yi Qianshang suddenly revealed a smile. Ji Yu took a step back, and her heart was filled with alarm. But it was already too late. He pulled her into his embrace and leaped into the air. His speed was so fast that he was like an afterimage as he flew into the distance. Ji Yu didn't even have time to ask before she was brought into the air. She was so scared that she hugged his neck. Although she knew Qin Gong, she couldn't fly so high. Even though Yi Qianshang was flying with a person in his arms, he was still as relaxed as usual. He lowered his head and said, "Little moon, open your eyes." Who would dare to open their eyes at such a height? Yi Qianshang's smile deepened. "If you don't open your eyes, I'll kiss you." Jiyu had no choice but to open her eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, she was shocked. Yi Qianshang held her and stood on the peak of the dark cloud mountain. Ah! Jiyu was screaming in her heart. This was too high. She tightly hugged Yi Qianshang's neck, and her large eyes couldn't help rolling around. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The purple moon, as big as a wheel, seemed to be right in front of his eyes. The silver-purple light flowed down in waves and turned into countless sparkling particles in the air, sprinkling down on the raging human world. Looking from the top of the mountain, they could see the entirety of Purple Moon City. The houses were neatly lined up like small boxes, and the red lights were moving through the city like dragons. There were faint sounds of gongs and drums, mixed with the lively voices of countless people. Chapter 2493. The sounds of the world were weak, but it was very lively. Jiyu felt like she and Yi Qianshang had become two immortals, standing alone and enjoying the prosperity of the world. Looking down at the Purple Moon City she grew up in, Jiyu suddenly felt a sense of unfamiliarity. At this moment, standing at such a high position and looking down at the familiar place, Jiyu suddenly felt like she had been abandoned. Too lonely. She couldn't help hugging Yi Qianshang tightly. It was a good thing he was with her. Yi Qianshang looked at her expression that kept changing before it finally settled on a disappointed expression. He raised a brow. "You don't like it?" Jiyu shook her head and slowly said, "No, I like it very much. It is very beautiful here, but looking at Purple Moon City from this angle, it's very unfamiliar." Yi Qianshang's heart skipped a beat, and he stroked her hair without saying a word. Jiyu suddenly asked, "Your martial arts are so high. Do you often fly into the sky and stand on top of a mountain, looking at the world through the clouds?" Yi Qianshang stroked her hair and softly said, Jiyu muttered, "Then you must have been very lonely before." Standing on top of a mountain and looking down, it was beautiful and strong, but it was lonely at the top. Yi Qianshang was stunned. Jiyu hugged him tightly and buried her head in his chest. "But it's different now. I'll be with you." There was a sudden warm current in his heart that washed over the cold and hard place, bringing a burst of warmth. Yi Qianshang closed his eyes and opened them again with a rare seriousness. He looked at Jiyu and softly said, "No matter what happens, you'll always be with me?" Jiyu nodded. The purple moon was in the sky and the river of stars was shining. The two people under the moon had decided to spend their lives together. Then it's a promise. This scene was incomparably beautiful. The purple moon in front, the river of stars above, the world below, and the beauty in his arms. Yi Qianshang would never forget that night, that scene, and the person in his arms. Jiyu suddenly looked up from his arms and smiled. "Qianshang, I'll take you to a place." He took her to see the cold moon without any smoke or fire in the world. Then she would take him to see the quiet moon in the world. Yi Qianshang was stunned. A complicated light flashed in his eyes, but he nodded in the end. All right. Huayu Tower was located in the center of Purple Moon City. It was the best place to admire the moon, and it was exclusively used by the royal family. At the same time, it was also the most heavily guarded place in Purple Moon City, because the purple moon god Amethyst was stored here. The purple moon god Amethyst was the source of Purple Moon City's enchantment. As long as the amethyst existed, the enchantment would exist. There were a total of 5 purple crystals, distributed in the 4 corners and in the center, and the largest piece of purple moon god crystal was in the Huayu restaurant. Entering and exiting this place required the protection of a special moon god token. Trespassers would die without leaving behind a corpse. However, Jiyu seemed to have been protected by the moon god since birth, and could freely travel through barriers. Perhaps it was because today was the moon god festival. There was no one guarding this place. Every moon god festival, The power of the enchantment was at its strongest. Even a fly could not fly in. Naturally, there was no need for guards. Therefore, the full moon emperor decided to give them a holiday. Jiyu had Yi Qianshang take the moon god token, and then brought him through countless barriers to the magnificent moon tower. The purple moon was in the sky, and countless stars were shining brightly. Looking at the sky from the magnificent moon pavilion was like looking at a flowing blue wave. The purple moon was rippling in the water, and countless faint purple rays of light fell into the magnificent moon pavilion. Chapter 2494. A gentle power rose from his dantian and soothed all the troubles in his heart. He didn't know if it was because it was in the center, but the moonlight in the flower moon pavilion was much purer than other places. The two of them were bathed in the gentle moonlight, making them look like they were wearing purple clothes. Jiyu said with a smile, "Qianshang, isn't this place beautiful?" Yi Qianshang kept looking at her. Seeing her sweet and cute smile, he was a bit absent-minded. He seemed to be absent-minded quite often tonight. He curled his lips into a smile. "It is very beautiful." Jiyu's face turned red. "I didn't want you to look at me." Yi Qianshang pulled her into his embrace and lowered his head to kiss her. "The scenery is even more beautiful." Jiyu broke free and said with a serious expression, "Qianshang, today is the moon god festival. I heard that if you make a wish to the moon god, all your wishes will come true. Perhaps you should make a wish." Yi Qianshang closed his eyes, but he didn't make a wish. He didn't believe in the existence of the moon god. He just wanted to make her happy. He curled his lips and looked at Jiyu, who was sincerely making a wish with a smile that wasn't a smile. Jiyu opened her eyes and looked at him with sparkling eyes. "Qianshang, what wish did you make?" Yi Qianshang patted her head and said in a profound manner, "It won't come true if I say it." Seeing her pure and beautiful smile, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. This was the first time in his life that he made a wish to a god. Jiyu pouted. "All right then." Yi Qianshang was suddenly curious about what she wished for. But Jiyu's lips were tightly sealed. He couldn't pry it open no matter how hard he tried, so he could only give up. Actually, he could easily guess her wish. It was for him to love her and spoil her for the rest of his life. But he guessed wrong this time. It couldn't be said that he was completely wrong. He only saw Jiyu's pure and cute side, but he ignored her fierce nature. "I believe that Qianshang loves me, so I swear in the name of Jiyu country's princess that I will be with him for the rest of my life. If I go against it, my body and soul will disappear." Yi Qianshang tapped her nose. "Stingy little girl." Jiyu made a face at him. "I'll tell you later." Yi Qianshang rubbed her head and revealed a faint smile. "All right, I'll wait." Jiyu nestled in his arms, bathing in the moonlight, as lazy as a cat. She raised her head to look at the moon, but his gaze remained on her. In an angle that Jiyu couldn't see, Yi Qianshang's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. There was hesitation, reluctance, regret, and a trace of unknown annoyance. He had been planning for so many days, and now it was time to act. But this little girl, Yi Qianshang's gaze became even more complicated. He had always been swift and decisive, but for the first time in his life, he was a bit hesitant. "Qianshang, Qianshang." Jiyu waved her hand in front of his face, looking confused. Yi Qianshang was stunned. He looked at Jiyu with a complicated gaze. Jiyu was stunned. Yi Qianshang spoke with a faint bewitching tone. "Little girl, close your eyes." Jiyu was now obedient to him. Although she had some doubts, she still closed her eyes. The night was a bit cold, and the wind blew on her body, making her feel a bit cold. His cool hand brushed past her eyes, her nose, her mouth, and finally landed on her fair neck. Chapter 2495. His cool hand brushed past her eyes, her nose, her mouth, and finally landed on her fair neck. His fingers paused slightly, and a slightly cold touch touched his skin. Jiyu felt her hair stand on end. She unconsciously reached out to touch it, but he stopped her. "Little girl, don't move. I'll put it on for you." When his hand brushed past her carotid artery, he paused for a moment. The expression in his eyes changed intensely as he gently caressed her fair neck, Feeling the throbbing under his hand, Ji Yu felt her hairs stand on end, like some kind of danger was about to descend. After a while his kiss fell onto her eyes, followed by a sigh. He still couldn't do it. A strong sense of sleepiness hit her, and Ji Yu only had time to mutter, "I feel sleepy," before falling asleep. When she opened her eyes again, she was still in Yi Qianshang's embrace. Her body was warm, but his was slightly cold, with a hint of coldness. Looking at the moon, she was surprised. "How long did I sleep for?" Yi Qianshang tapped her nose and gave a sigh. "You really are a sleepy person. You actually fell asleep while standing. I was your bed for 2 hours and didn't even dare move." Ji Yu's face was a bit red. She didn't know why she suddenly fell asleep. She crawled out of Yi Qianshang's embrace, and even gave him a massage before pulling him up. When she pulled him up, she found that he had changed his clothes. It was clearly a light purple, looking charming and enchanting under the moonlight. Now, however, he was dressed in a gloomy black, almost blending into the night. She rubbed her eyes. "Why did you change your clothes? When did you change?" Yi Qianshang gave a sigh. "Little girl, you actually drooled when you slept. My clothes were stained with your fragrance, so I changed them." Ji Yu's face turned red. She unconsciously touched her little mouth, but she didn't feel any saliva. "I've already wiped it clean for you." Yi Qianshang revealed a smile that wasn't a smile. His finger gently stroked her little mouth and touched her cherry lips as he slowly said, "I'll keep that dress forever. I won't wash it again." Ji Yu's face turned even redder when she heard this, but the bubbles of joy in her heart grew even more. She quickly changed the topic. "You look good in this dress too." This person was simply like a clothes hanger. No matter what clothes he wore, he would be able to wear them exquisitely. The black robe on his tall and straight body gave him a mysterious feeling under the purple moon. It gave her a different feeling. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Ji Yu couldn't help but throw herself into his arms again. There was a nice cold fragrance on his body. After smelling it for a few days, she had already gotten used to it. Smelling his scent made her feel at ease. Suddenly she wrinkled her nose. "Why do you smell like blood? Are you injured?" Her little hand was about to pull at his clothes. Yi Qianshang held her little hand that was randomly moving around. "Don't worry. It should be an injury from the fall in the cave 2 days ago. Little girl, you can't sleep well, and even kicked my wound. It's just a bit of skin, it's fine." Ji Yu was relieved. She still felt a bit guilty, so she wanted to see his wound. But Yi Qianshang didn't allow it. He said that the wound was in a special place, and it wasn't convenient for her to see it. Moreover, it wasn't important. Ji Yu didn't insist. Chapter 2496. The two leaned against each other for a while, and chatted for a bit. Yi Qianshang looked at the moon and gave a lazy yawn. "It's getting late, let's go." Ji Yu was still a bit reluctant. These past few days had been the happiest for her. She never thought that just being with him would make her so happy. However, this was the last day she would be with him. He was going to carry out the assassination mission tomorrow. Ji Yu looked at the handsome man beside her and couldn't help saying, "You're going to assassinate Jun Luyi tomorrow, right? How much do you know about him?" Yi Qianshang looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Little girl, how much do you know about him?" Ji Yu pouted her lips. "I've heard people say that he is a pervert." Yi Qianshang raised a brow. "Where is the pervert?" Ji Yu thought about it before counting the things she had heard with her fingers. "He is cold and ruthless. He has killed many people." Yi Qianshang curled his lips. "When he leads troops to war, how could he not kill people? Do you think he leads troops for fun?" Ji Yu choked. If he only kills people on the battlefield, no one would call him a pervert. But after he captured other people's cities, he slaughtered innocent people, and didn't even let the children go. I heard that after he captured Huanhua City, he slaughtered 10,000 people. That's why others gave him the title of Azura war god. Yi Qianshang slightly narrowed his eyes and softly said, "He encountered the most stubborn resistance in Huanhua City, and lost 30,000 soldiers, and his best brother. In order to take revenge, he ordered all the enemy soldiers to be killed after he captured Huanhua City. He didn't kill any civilians." Killed? Why didn't he kill them? He even killed several hundred children. Yi Qianshang gave a laugh. That's just a rumor. How do you know it's just a rumor and not the truth? Ji Yu wasn't convinced. I'm the #1 assassin, so I naturally have reliable information. Yi Qianshang revealed a smile that wasn't a smile as he rubbed her head. It's different from what you heard. No one understood Jun Liuya better than he did. Leading troops to war was originally a cold and bloody affair. In order to obtain victory on the battlefield, one would do anything. All kinds of schemes were endless. The winner was king while the loser was in the wrong. The level of darkness and cruelty was not something that a little girl like her could understand. He stood up and pulled up this little girl, who was as transparent as glass and as delicate as a flower. It's getting late. Let's go back. Ji Yu held his hand, her big eyes looking even clearer than the moonlight. Then you be careful, I'll wait for your safe return. She hesitated for a moment before biting her lips. Regarding the assassination of Jun Liuya, you just have to do your best. Most importantly, you have to come back alive. Yi Qianshang had a complicated look as he revealed an evil smile. You're that worried about me? Of course, I'm still waiting for you to come back and marry me. You won't forget about this, right? Ji Yu's eyes widened. Of course not. Yi Qianshang paused before pulling her hand. All right, go back obediently and wait for me to marry you. The two of them, one tall and one short, gradually disappeared into the distance. In the depths of the magnificent moon tower, in a secret room filled with traps, there was a crack in the center of the purple moon god's crystal that went through the entire crystal. There was a faint blood color at the crack, looking enchanting and evil. Chapter 2497. At the crack of the crystal, there was a faint blood-red color that looked demonic. It was as if someone had suffered a backlash from the crystal when they were trying to destroy it, causing them to splatter on the ground. 3 days later in the palace, Ji Yu lay on the gorgeous bed in Chiyue Palace and rolled around in boredom. She touched the necklace around her neck and felt as if there was a piece of honey hidden in her heart. Using the 1,000-year cold iron as a chain, a sparkling and translucent gemstone with a purple glow hung from it. The gemstone seemed to have moonlight surging within it, rippling gently. The word Yi could be faintly seen in the middle. This is a token of our love. When I come back, I'll marry you. That person's lazy and low voice seemed to still linger by her ear. He returned half of her savings to her, and even magically conjured the 1,000 flowing flower for her. Ji Yu patted her little face, her big eyes filled with happiness and sweetness. Although she was scolded by her anxious parents the moment she returned to the palace, she could just act coquettishly and get over it. Yesterday was her father's birthday, and she personally presented the 1,000 flowing flower to him. Her father was so happy that he immediately became interested and composed a poem. Her father was a poet, and his poems had been spread throughout the continent for a long time. Some people said that if her father was only a poet, he would have greater achievements and might even become a poet. It was a pity that he became the emperor. Because her father was a poet, the ministers under him also knew how to compose poems and songs, and were put in important positions. The most common thing to see in the court was singing and dancing. No one really paid attention to the raging war outside. Jun Liuya was about to completely destroy the neighboring country. Ji Yu's court finally heard some news and became a little nervous. However, the emperor's birthday was the most important. At such an important time, reciting poems and singing praises was the most important thing for the court officials. Therefore, this impromptu poem made by her imperial father was immediately praised by all the civil and military officials. There were even some civil officials who took the opportunity to present countless poems to the little princess, praising the little princess to the heavens for a while. However, Ji Yu was not interested in poems and was not interested in them at all. Last night, she had reported to her imperial father and imperial mother, clearly telling them that she already had someone she liked, and that they had already made a secret promise. She thought that it would be a storm, but she didn't expect that her father and mother would be so open-minded about this matter. After asking about the specific situation, Her father explained to her the pros and cons of marrying an assassin and asked if she was still willing. Of course she was willing. Imperial father sighed and patted her head. Finally he said, "Your marriage is up to you." As long as Yi Qianshang came to propose, the palace could begin preparing the dowry. Her wedding with him must be at night. At that time, the moon must be at its fullest, and the two of them will be clothed in the moonlight and swear to the moon. With the moon god as the witness, they tied the knot. The 9 prefectures rejoiced, and the world cast sidelong glances at them. Princess Jiyu's wedding should be this grand. The setting sun was blood red, and the sunset glow was like fire. That fire burned through half the sky. It was a demonic and intense red. There was a sense of foreboding. Bright Moon Temple, Jiyu Country. Reporting. The Huiyue Nation has officially declared war on us. Reporting. The 50,000 soldiers of the Huiyue Nation had broken through the 1,000 Cloud Pass. The 1,000 Cloud Pass has fallen. Reporting. The 100 Spirit City has fallen. Reporting. The Xianyang Gate has fallen. Urgent reports were blown into the palace like snowflakes, making people feel cold. Chapter 2498. Full Moon Emperor sat on the throne and looked down at the officials with a pale face. The Huiyue Kingdom had clearly come prepared this time. Although they had broken through other cities, they definitely couldn't break through Purple Moon City. No matter how many people came, Purple Moon City's barrier was said to be left behind by an ancient god. It was very powerful, and anyone who tried to force their way in would be struck to death by heavenly lightning. Only those with the moon god token could enter. And each person had one token. As long as the moon god purple crystal in the center of the city didn't break, not only would the Huiyue Kingdom not be able to break in, they would also be struck to death by lightning. Jiyu Kingdom was a country protected by a god. So although Full Moon Emperor's face was pale, his heart was still very calm. The news from the front also spread to the harem. Jiyu was also restless in her palace. Yi Qianshang had been gone for half a month, and there was no news of him at all. That Jun Liuya was still attacking her kingdom, and clearly hadn't been assassinated, and was still alive. What about Yi Qianshang? Would he fail and be captured? Would he have been beheaded by that pervert Jun Liuya? Countless terrifying thoughts appeared in her mind, making it hard for her to eat and sleep. Report. Huiyue Kingdom's 30,000 soldiers have broken into Purple Moon City. A soldier covered in blood rushed into the throne room and threw down a giant bomb before dying. Full Moon Emperor's face instantly turned pale, and he suddenly stood up. Impossible. The officials' faces all turned pale. A person wearing a Taoist robe ran and covered in blood, as if he had gone crazy. Your Highness, the barrier is broken. It's broken. The moon god is angry, no longer protecting our kingdom. He suddenly slammed his head against a pillar and died. Blood splattered all over the officials. Blood. There was blood everywhere. There were palace maids and eunuchs running everywhere. The Huiyue Kingdom's soldiers who rushed and grinned as they raised their deathly blades and killed one person with one slash. The blood that splashed out dyed Chiyue Palace red. Princess! Princess, let's go this way. Jiyu's personal maid Xiaoliang tightly held Jiyu's hand and ran towards a certain direction in the palace. Jiyu staggered a bit, but her mind wasn't on running away. The soldiers of the Huiyue Kingdom had barged in from the front. Her parents were still in the throne room. How were they? Jiyu's face was pale. She suddenly broke free from Xiaoliang's grip and ran frantically to the throne room. Imperial father! Imperial mother! Nothing must happen to you. She ran as fast as she could, using almost all of her power. Along the way, she naturally encountered soldiers from the Huiyue Kingdom who were waving their swords wildly. These soldiers came to capture her and pull her back, but she cut them away with all her might. If one person went all out, 100 people wouldn't be able to stop him. What's more, Jiyu's martial arts had improved. Although she was not as strong as a true expert, it was more than enough to kill these ordinary soldiers of the Huiyue Kingdom. Wherever she passed, several soldiers from the Huiyue Kingdom would fall to the ground. Her hairpins and jewelry had fallen off, and her pink dress had turned into a bloody dress. The little princess, who had been ignorant of the hardships of the world, was now in a sorry state and fierce state. Before this, she had never killed anyone. When the sword in her palm pierced into the chest of a soldier for the first time, the warm blood splashed out and sprayed directly on her. She almost vomited, and her face was frighteningly pale. But she didn't have time to think, nor did she have time to deal with her weakness. The worry for her parents and the hatred for the soldiers of the Wuxia kingdom made her burst out with the greatest energy. Chapter 2499. The girl, who used to be so kind that she didn't even dare to kill a chicken, had now turned into a shura from hell. More and more soldiers of the Wuxia kingdom died under her sword naturally. She attracted the attention of more soldiers of the Wuxia kingdom who broke in. More and more soldiers came to stop her. Catch her! Catch her! This little girl is too cruel. She killed so many of our brothers. Kill her! Avenge our brothers! No, this little girl looks good. Let's play with her first. The soldiers, who were tempered by blood and fire, were naturally violent and wild in front of the enemy. Some scolded, some chased, and some besieged. The smell of blood mixed with the smell of male hormones filled the whole palace. After all, Jiyu was alone and had never experienced a war. How could she be a match for these well-trained soldiers? She was shot in the leg by an arrow that came out of nowhere. She staggered and almost fell to the ground. The soldiers immediately surrounded her. A bold bearded soldier pounced on her and pulled her skirt directly with his big hand. It was the first time in Jiyu's life that she had been so close to such a violent person. She almost fainted and was about to vomit. Ignoring the pain in her leg, she suddenly withdrew her leg and kicked him away with her good foot. In the screams of the soldiers, she threw out her sword and stabbed it directly into the man's heart. She jumped up, but the pain in her injured leg was so severe that she staggered again. She quickly supported herself with her sword. Damn it! This little girl is quite fierce. Hot enough, I like it. A man who seemed to be the leader approached her with a heavy sword in his eyes. She stepped back. A soldier behind her suddenly pounced on her, but was kicked away by her. The leader pounced on her again with a green light in his eyes. Princess Xiao Liang, who was shaken off by Jiyu, finally broke through the encirclement of the soldiers and rushed over. She threw a flame flower on the spot. With a loud bang, a circle of smoke burst out, temporarily blocking the sight of the fierce soldiers. Xiao Liang took the opportunity to pull Jiyu's hand and ran out. Princess, don't fight. Come with me. Xiao Liang's hand was so strong that Jiyu felt that her wrist was about to be broken by her. Xiao Liang led her to run among the soldiers and kill them. The sword in her hand flashed, and from time to time, it swept past the soldiers of the Wuxia kingdom, who came to stop them. Her movements were swift and precise, and she was invincible. Jiyu's eyes widened. Xiaoyang, who had always been gentle and weak in front of her, was actually a hidden martial arts master. Looking at his ability and reaction speed, it was obvious that he had undergone special training. However, at this time, she had no time to ask about Xiaoyang's martial arts. She grabbed Xiaoyang's hand and said in a trembling voice, Xiaoyang, save my father and mother. Save my father and mother. Xiao Liang's feet paused for a moment, and then he flew away with her. Princess, you should save your life first. His Majesty and Her Highness. Heaven helps the worthy. The cooked duck flew away just like that, and the soldiers were naturally unwilling to give up. They yelled and shouted as they chased after them. Stop them. Don't let them escape. Chaos, blood, screams of people around, and the sound of swords piercing into flesh in the face of war. Human lives were as cheap as grass, cut off one by one. Jiyu's mind was in a mess. There was only one thought in her mind. Even if she died, she would die with her parents. She did not want to live alone. Chapter 2500. In the chaos, a few silver lights flashed and shot toward them. The silver light was extremely fast and powerful, bringing with it a sharp whistling sound. Liang and Jiyu were killing the soldiers blocking the way. When they realized that something was wrong, the silver light had already rushed to them. Princess! Liang's face changed, and he rushed to Ji Yu desperately. Several silver stars shot into Liang's back, blood splashed, and Liang slid down softly on Ji Yu's body. Liang! Ji Yu's voice was already hoarse, and she could hardly shout at the moment. She was going to fight with these beasts. Ji Yu's eyes turned red. If she had some leeway when she attacked just now because of her weakness, at this moment, she was going all out. She waved her sword like lightning, and the soldiers who rushed to her were directly cut into pieces by her sword and flew out. Fresh blood dyed her pink blouse red, leaving large patches of blood stains on the ground. Although her martial arts were not low, even a tiger could not fight against a pack of wolves. In the fight, she had been cut several times, and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Blood sprinkled down like rain. She alone had killed dozens of people. A few more cold stars flew over. This time, they directly hit her legs. Intense pain assaulted her. She swayed and fell to the ground. Her treasured sword also fell to the ground with a clang. A general who was obviously the leader rushed up. "Little bitch, I don't believe that I can't control you." Ji Yu wanted to struggle, but she was exhausted. The general's face was ferocious, and he tore open her collar. Suddenly he paused, and his eyes fell straight on the necklace hanging on Ji Yu's neck. He trembled in fear. This was suddenly he felt a chill on his back, and blood splashed. And then he was kicked away. Ji Yu felt dizzy, and her vision was getting darker and darker. In her blurred vision, a man walked quickly, with endless anger and killing intent in every step. Wherever he passed, blood splashed, and countless soldiers of the Wuxia kingdom fell down. "General! General!" One of the soldiers knelt there, trembling in fear. His face was filled with unconcealable fear, as he looked at the man in black robes walking towards him. It was as if he was looking at the Grim Reaper. "General, we are the Crown Prince's subordinates." Before he could say a second word, he was killed by the man with the sword. The man walked in front of Ji Yu and looked down at her from above. He wore a ferocious ghost mask on his face, making it impossible for others to see his true expression. He only felt that this person's aura was extremely cold, as if it had been frozen for 10,000 years. It was cold and austere. Ji Yu had lost so much blood that she could barely see anything. She stared at the person and suddenly trembled. She reached out her trembling hand. "Qianshang, is that you?" That person did not move. His demonic face was ferocious as his cold voice rang out. "I am Jun Liuya." Ji Yu was shocked. Her mind became clear for a moment, and her little hands clenched tightly. It was this demon. This demon had destroyed her country and destroyed her family. Why wasn't he dead yet? Why didn't God take him in? "You deserve to die." Ji Yu had never scolded anyone before. All her hatred was transformed into this sentence. Her voice trembled slightly. "You've killed so many people. There will be retribution." Her large eyes were bloodshot with hatred. Jun Liuya looked down at her. His eyes narrowed, and his voice was cold. "On the battlefield, it's either you die or I die. I don't believe in retribution." This person was like a heavenly deity standing above her, completely blocking out her light. Chapter 2501. He bent down and reached out a hand to her, as if he wanted to do something. Ji Yu ignored the pain, and desperately rolled to the side. Her wound was touched, and she was in so much pain that her face turned pale, and her vision turned black. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands. Demon, someone will kill you." Jun Liuya's body stiffened and he straightened up. He looked down at her coldly. "You sent that assassin?" Unfortunately, he escaped. He looked at her for a moment and suddenly turned around. He coldly ordered, "Take her away," and strode away. Her weak voice came from behind him. "If you don't kill me, you'll regret it." Jun Liuya's body paused and he seemed to smile. He left behind 4 cold words. "Let's wait and see." Ji Yu looked at him deeply, as if she wanted to carve his appearance into her bones. Finally, she slowly closed her eyes. "Qianshang, why didn't you kill him, Qianshang? I'm afraid I won't be able to see you again." A lamp was as small as a bean, and hay was piled up. This was a prison cell. It was dark, damp, and gloomy. The smell of rotting blood floated in the air. Ji Yu was curled up on the hay pile. She was dizzy and didn't know where she was. "It hurts." She curled up her body and muttered under her breath. She had suffered quite a number of injuries, and her delicate body was covered with countless bloody wounds. She had always been afraid of pain, and would occasionally cry out in pain in her mother's arms when there was a wound on her hand. She was the apple of her father and mother's eyes. If she was slightly injured, her father and mother would watch over her without rest, holding her and patting her gently. This time, she was seriously injured and all her wounds burned with pain. She couldn't help but cry out in pain in her dizziness, as if she was waiting for her father and mother to comfort her. Sure enough, a pair of hands picked her up, and in a daze, she fell into a warm embrace. Mother, Jiyu is in pain. She thought it was her mother hugging her, and couldn't help but pout as tears rolled down her cheeks. The hands holding her stiffened slightly. Someone sighed softly and stroked her face with their fingers, wiping away the tears on her face. His fingertips were slightly calloused, and had a toughness that only belonged to men. Her mother, on the other hand, had the softest hands in the world. When she caressed her, her fingertips were like the finest silk. Even though Jiyu was unconscious, she could still vaguely feel the difference. She subconsciously tugged at the other party's clothes. The material was soft and smooth, and there were some patterns on it. It was very similar to her father's dragon robe. Father. She pursed her lips again. Father. I'm in pain. Can you hug Jiyu? That pair of hands was taking off her clothes. When they heard her words, they paused for a moment. They didn't hug her, but their hands moved even faster. Her blood-stained clothes were finally peeled away. The pair of hands unbuttoned her clothes very smoothly and skillfully. They didn't really touch her wound. In a daze, Jiyu felt a little cold, but the pain lessened a little. That was because the pair of hands began to slide lightly on her wound, as if they were applying some kind of elixir for her. After the ointment was applied, the pain lessened a lot. There were deep and shallow wounds on her body. The shallow wounds were fine, but the deep ones needed to be cleaned. Naturally, it would be painful to treat them. Jiyu cried out in pain again, but this time it was cold. So afraid of pain, yet so desperate. Someone sighed softly. That voice was vaguely familiar. Chapter 2502. Jiyu's body stiffened. Her big eyes blinked a few times, as if she was about to open them. However, the pair of hands hit the corresponding acupoints on her body in time. Her mind went blank and she fainted again. Jiyu slowly woke up. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a cell. She was lying on a pile of hay. There was an oil lamp on the table, emitting a dim yellow light. The cell door was closed, and there were a few iron bars above it. Jiyu sat there for a moment. Suddenly, she stood up and rushed to the door to look outside. There were 4 soldiers standing outside the cell door. Each of them was as straight as a javelin. There was a faint aura of killing on them, which was terrifying. Soldiers of the Wuxia kingdom. Her kingdom was destroyed. And it was not a dream. Where was her mother? Where was her father? Her heart was trembling. She desperately hit the cell door with her fist. Let me out! Let me out! However, the 4 soldiers turned a deaf ear to her. They still stood there like javelins, and did not even bat an eyelid. Where are my father and mother? I want to see them. I want to see them. Jiyu shook the cell door, and the door rattled. She was so worried that she didn't care about anything else. Her voice was almost hoarse from all the shouting. No one cared. Still no one cared. Jiyu faintly felt that although the soldiers outside were also from the Wuxia kingdom, they were not the same as the soldiers who chased her in the palace that day. Those soldiers were like a motley crew, but the 4 people standing here at this moment were like a regular army that had been tempered in the Azura field. Jiyu shouted for a long time, but no one cared. She clenched her small hands tightly, but there was nothing she could do. She didn't even know which prison she was in. She did not know how many days she had been locked up here. She had noticed that the wounds on her body had scabbed and were not so painful anymore. She only felt a little itchy, which was a sign that she was about to recover. She remembered that someone seemed to have treated her wounds when she was in a daze. However, who would be kind enough to treat her wounds in such a prison? Was it a dream? She sat there and looked at the wound on her leg for a long time. She could not figure out what was going on. Or perhaps as time passed, the wound healed on its own? After all, her physique had always been very good, and the possibility of her self-recovery was very high. She looked around, not understanding why they imprisoned her, the princess of a fallen country, here. Suddenly, a faint noise came from outside, an arrogant and shrill voice, like that of a eunuch. "How dare you stop His Highness the Crown Prince? Do you want to die?" "I'm sorry, Your Highness. We only listened to the marshal. The marshal said that no one is allowed to enter this place without his command arrow." Another voice was neither servile nor overbearing. "His Highness the Crown Prince has a much higher status than your marshal. He is the future monarch of the Wuxia kingdom. If you dare to stop His Highness, you will be disobeying the monarch. You will be beheaded." The voice was even sharper and angrier. "Outside, we only listen to the marshal. If Your Highness insists on going in, why don't you ask the marshal for a token arrow?" "How dare you? How dare she talk to the Crown Prince like that? Your marshal is the Crown Prince's brother, so he must listen to the Crown Prince's orders. Get out of my way. Military orders are as important as the sky. Please forgive us, Crown Prince. If the Crown Prince wants to force his way in, he will have to step over our dead bodies." The guards outside did not budge an inch. Chapter 2503. Jiyu could hear the commotion from time to time. Although it was far away, she was still a martial artist and could hear it clearly. Outside there was the sound of weapons clashing. It seemed that the two sides were confronting each other. After a while, a rather dignified voice sounded. "Forget it. This one only wanted to see who the girl that third prince saved was. To think that third prince would not hesitate to personally kill someone. And the person he killed was this one's subordinate. This one will settle the score with third prince." The chaotic sound of footsteps gradually faded away. Jiyu sat down on the hay. Although she did not know much about national affairs, she had previously investigated Jun Liuya and knew a little about his background. He was the third prince of Wuxia country, with military power and a famous war god. According to Wuxia country's rules, the eldest son of the first wife was the crown prince. So no matter how great his military achievements were, he could only be a general and not the crown prince. The crown prince was his second brother, the empress's son, who was 2 months older than him. It was said that he was a hedonistic son. She did not expect that the hedonistic crown prince would also come this time. Could it be that the people who killed the palace maids and eunuchs were the crown prince's people? Jiyu's mind was filled with questions. Forget it. Jun Liuya was the general who attacked Jiyu country this time. So he was the one who destroyed her country and destroyed her family. Neither he nor the crown prince were good people. They were both her enemies. As long as she did not die, she would take revenge. That person did not kill her, so he must have other uses for her. Jiyu began to go on a hunger strike. She didn't even look at the food that the 4 guards outside brought in, let alone eat it. At first, the food was just ordinary pasta and vegetables. Later, in order to let her eat, the food was changed, and some of them were even things that she liked very much. But since Jiyu had already made up her mind, she wouldn't change her mind. She wouldn't eat it. Not only did she go on a hunger strike, she also cut off water. She was originally injured, so after going on a hunger strike for 3 days, she was dizzy and had lost a lot of weight. She was lying on a small bed. This small bed had been changed for her by the 4 guards who were guarding her 3 days ago. Although the bedding was rough, it was soft and dry, much more comfortable than the pile of hay. She lay on the bed and began to have nightmares. One moment, she dreamed that her parents were killed by the rebel army. Another moment, she dreamed that she was desperately killing people when she was fleeing from the palace. And then she dreamed that Xiao Liang was standing in front of her bed, covered in blood. She broke out in cold sweat, but she couldn't wake up from the nightmare. Was she going to die? In her daze, she seemed to feel her body being forcefully lifted up by someone. Her mouth was forcefully pried open, and a stream of warm water was fed into her stomach, seemingly moistening her dry throat. Before she could react, another mouthful of porridge entered her mouth. Her mind finally cleared up a little. Although she couldn't open her eyes, she still remembered that she was on a hunger strike. She tried her best to spit out the porridge, but someone forcefully grabbed her chin and blocked her mouth with his lips. Her nose faintly smelled a familiar scent. In a daze, she blurted out 2 words, Qian Shang. She had porridge in her mouth, so the 2 words were blurred out. Her lips were blocked, but in an instant, a hand wiped her throat and forced her to swallow the porridge. She struggled again, but her wrist was clamped down. A voice whispered in her ear, "If you want to see your father and mother, you'd better eat obediently." Chapter 2504. The voice was magnetic and cold, with the coldness of an iron-blooded general who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Ji Yu shuddered. She wanted to open her eyes, but she didn't have the strength to do so, so she fainted again. Be good, eat another bite. My poor mother is here." Ji Yu suddenly heard a familiar voice in her daze. It was her father and mother. She was shocked and suddenly opened her eyes. It was indeed her father and mother's faces in front of her. Although they were in a sorry state, they were still alive and were surrounding her, right next to her. Furthermore, she wasn't in a dark prison cell. Instead, she seemed to be in a small palace. She was familiar with the layout of this palace, which was similar to Jingxi Palace. Jingxi Palace was a cold palace, which was originally a place to imprison those imperial concubines who had committed crimes. However, although Ji Yu's father wasn't good at ruling the country, he was a true sentimental person. He only married Ji Yu's mother in his life, so he naturally wouldn't imprison them in the cold palace. Therefore, this cold palace existed in name only. Ji Yu used to play here when she was young, so she vaguely knew the layout of this place. Ji Yu always thought that her father and mother had been killed. Now that she saw that they were fine, she was relieved and no longer wanted to seek death. She was willing to eat. In just a few days, her imperial father and imperial mother had aged quite a bit. Her father's once straight back was hunched, and half of his hair had turned white overnight. Her mother, who had always been elegant and charming, had countless wrinkles on her face, showing her old age and vicissitudes of life. The country had been destroyed, and the family was about to die. What would happen to their family? From her father and mother, Ji Yu learned that the Ji Yu kingdom had truly been destroyed. Those ministers had either died for the country or surrendered. None of them were left. Her family of 3 was imprisoned here, and outside were the guards of the Wuxia kingdom, who were like iron buckets. They couldn't escape at all. Every day, it was a female general who delivered food to them. This female general was as cold as a stone, just like the guards outside. Every time she put down the food, she would leave without saying a word. Ji Yu could even vaguely sense hostility from her. She didn't care, nor did she have the time to care. After losing the support of his ministers, her father was like an ordinary person. At this moment, he could only panic because he didn't know how long he, the ruler of a fallen country, could live. "He will kill us, he will." When Skymoon country was destroyed by him, he killed the entire royal family of Skymoon country, leaving no one alive. Ji Yu's father began to ramble again. In the 3 days since Ji Yu woke up, she had heard this sentence dozens of times. Ji Yu's body was pretty good. After 3 days of recuperation, she had almost recovered. Even the injuries on her body were mostly healed. Other than the female general, no one else came to visit during these 3 days. It was as if her family of 3 had been forgotten. Ji Yu was a child who grew up in a greenhouse. She didn't know what to do when faced with such a sudden change. Her mind was a mess, and her imperial father's nagging made her heart even more confused. She couldn't figure it out at all. She had also heard of some of Jun Liuya's brutal deeds. His army was invincible. Wherever they went, if the officials in the capital were tactful enough to open the door and surrender, he would give them enough gold and treasures to ensure that they did not have to worry about food and clothing. Chapter 2505. Not only that, they even opened the granaries to sell food to win the hearts of the people. If the resistance was strong, then the day the city was breached would be the day the city was massacred. Not only would the officials and soldiers who resisted be killed, even the people who ran to the top of the city to help fight the war would not be spared. Because of this, wherever his army went, the guards of the state capitals would not dare to resist and would open the city gates to surrender. Even if the officials were loyal to the emperor and wanted to resist, their subordinates and the people would strongly oppose it. There were even cases where the people killed the officials and opened the city gates themselves. The Cloud Underworld continent was originally an entire continent. It had been united countless times and divided countless times. The common people lived together, just like the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms of the past. The establishment of these countries was nothing more than the separation of the warlords. No matter who ruled them, most of the people would not feel humiliated. Many of the people even hoped that the entire continent could be united. This way, there would be less wars, and the people would be able to recuperate more easily. It was because of this that his army could come so quickly and so fiercely. When a small country was destroyed, the obedient subjects could be spared and given a way out. However, the ruler of the country could not be spared. This was the so-called cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. In Jiyu's era, although the entire Cloud Underworld continent was mainly supported by the 3 big kingdoms, there were still some small kingdoms that were subordinate to them. These small kingdoms were content to stay in a corner and relied on the big kingdoms that were closest to them. Now those small kingdoms were almost completely destroyed. The royal families of those small kingdoms were either slaughtered or captured as slaves for eternity. Some were even tattooed on their faces and sent far away to desolate lands. It could be said that none of them had a good ending. It was also because of this that Jiyu's father, the Full Moon Emperor, was so anxious and uneasy, like an ant on a hot pan. How could the kingdom be destroyed? How did they breach the Purple Moon City? The Purple Moon City was protected by the spirit barrier. Without the moon god token issued by the royal family, the enemies could not enter at all. The inspection at the city gate was also very strict. Strangers were not allowed to enter the city. The late emperor had said that as long as the Huayu restaurant was protected, the spirit barrier in the Purple Moon City would not be broken. It would strike the invaders into charcoal. How could the spirit barrier fail? We've been attacked by the enemy. So many enemies have entered the city, but not a single heavenly thunder has struck down. Could it be that the heavens want our Jiyu country to perish? Full Moon Emperor muttered listlessly. The Empress also clenched her fists. I don't understand either. The failure of the barrier should be due to an accident with the crystal in the Huaihua Tower. However, the Huaihua Tower itself has a barrier. Without a special token, outsiders can't enter at all. The people who can enter are all people His Majesty absolutely trusts. Who would destroy the crystal? Jiyu's mind had been muddled these days. Now that she suddenly heard her father's words, her heart suddenly sank. His hands and feet suddenly turned cold. Could it be that it was Qian Shang who went in to destroy the crystal? No, it can't be. He was an assassin, not a citizen of the Huiwa kingdom. Why would he do such a thing? Besides, it was purely a coincidence that she found him. He treated her so well, liked her so much, and even said that he wanted to marry her. He would never do such a thing. If he married her, he would be the prince consort of Jiyu country, and would be able to hold great power in his hands. It would be much better than him being an assassin. The destruction of Jiyu country would only bring him harm, and no benefits. He wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Chapter 2506. She couldn't doubt him. While Jiyu was trying her best to comfort herself, the female general came to deliver food again. This time, there were 4 dishes, 1 soup and 3 bowls of rice. For the first time, the female general's sharp eyes fell on Jiyu. After sizing her up for a while, she suddenly said, "This meal is delicious. The rice is precious, so don't waste a single grain of rice. That's the only way to survive." She was obviously implying something. After the female general left, Emperor Yuanyu pondered her words for a while. His face changed slightly, and he immediately said, "I'm afraid that Jun Liuya is going to do something to us. This meal might be our last meal." His words made the mother and daughter's faces turn pale. The empress burst into tears. You and I are already old, so it's fine if we die. But our daughter is still in her prime, a flower that hasn't fully bloomed yet. If she is harmed like this, won't he kill me? Your Majesty, is there any way to help our daughter escape? Emperor Yuanyu was a man who had been an emperor before, so he was still decisive at critical moments. His eyes fell on the food. Perhaps our chance of survival lies in these dishes. Emperor Yuanyu's guess was right. There was indeed a secret in the dishes. At the bottom of Jiyu's bowl, he dug out a piece of paper. There was only a short line of words on it. Tonight at midnight, reinforcements have arrived. This piece of paper gave this family a chance of survival. According to Emperor Yuanyu and the Empress, this chance of survival was naturally given to their daughter. However, Jiyu was determined to live and die with her parents. She didn't want to escape alone. In order to persuade their daughter, Emperor Yuanyu and the Empress almost cracked their mouths, but Jiyu was unmoved. In order to persuade his daughter, Emperor Yuanyu preached a series of principles. For example, as the only princess of Jiyu Kingdom, she bore the heavy responsibility of reviving the kingdom and avenging her parents. In the end, Emperor Yuanyu and the Empress threatened that if Jiyu didn't agree, they would kill themselves in advance. Under such circumstances, Jiyu had no choice but to agree. At midnight, reinforcements arrived as expected. The so-called reinforcements were actually two people. One was a masked man in black, and the other was a girl with a similar figure to Jiyu. The guards outside had been knocked unconscious for half an hour by some unknown method. The black-clothed and masked man took the opportunity to bring the young girl in. The young girl had obviously fainted and was at his mercy. The black-clothed man asked Jiyu and the young girl to change their clothes. Then, the young girl would pretend to be Jiyu and lie on the bed. Then, the full moon emperor and the queen would act as a cover. In this way, it would not be easy to be discovered. Then the black-clothed man hurriedly left with Jiyu. Jiyu felt as if there was a ball of fire burning in her heart. She felt like she was in a nightmare that she couldn't wake up from. She missed her parents, but she had no choice but to escape alone with others. Originally, she was doted on by her parents. As long as she cried, she could get everything she wanted. Now her tears were almost dry, but she couldn't wake up from this nightmare no matter what. Every time she closed her eyes, she would imagine that everything was just a dream. When she woke up, Jiyu country would still be peaceful and prosperous. She would still be the most pampered princess of Jiyu country, getting whatever she wanted. But every time she opened her eyes, she was faced with a nightmarish reality. Her country was gone, and the fate of her parents and herself was precarious. And there was only one culprit behind all of this: Jun Lu Yi. Jiyu clenched her fists so tightly that her fingernails dug into her palms. The hatred for the destruction of her country burned fiercely in her heart. Chapter 2507. The seed of hatred sprouted in her heart and quickly grew. She wanted him to pay the price. She would definitely make him pay the price. The person who brought her away was very skilled in martial arts. Jumping high and low, they avoided the heavy patrolling guards and rushed out of the palace. Jiyu's small mouth was tightly pursed as she ran with this person. In any case, her qigong was quite good, so she didn't cause too much of a burden to this person. They ran out of the palace and came to a secluded street outside. In the middle of the night, there was a curfew in the city. Aside from the patrolling soldiers of the Huiyue kingdom, there was almost no one on the street. It had to be said that this Jun Liuye was indeed skilled. In just a short 7 or 8 days, the shadow of war could no longer be seen in the city. There were a few houses with lights still on, and faint laughter and chatter could be heard from the houses. It was as if everything was the same as before. For the people, it didn't matter which regime was in power. As long as the people were given a stable and safe life, it didn't matter. After the fall of the kingdom, the only ones who truly perished were probably the Ji family, and a few ministers who were absolutely loyal to the Ji dynasty. Her father was a good father, a good husband, and a good poet. The only thing he wasn't a good emperor. After ruling for so many years, there weren't many loyal ministers. and the people didn't even lean towards him. Jiyu had always thought that the outside world would be filled with mourning, and that the people would be unable to suppress their grief. She didn't expect to see such a peaceful scene. On the busiest street, there were even many restaurants and inns that were operating as usual. So this war was just the collapse of a few people's worlds. You were sent by Qian Shang? Jiyu finally asked the question that had been suppressed in her heart. He was the only one she could think of. Although she had many friends, none of them had the ability to bribe the guards in the palace to save her from that iron bucket of a place. That person snorted and pulled her by the arm to fly out. Why didn't he come to save her himself? Was it because he was too heavily injured? Jiyu grabbed that person's sleeve and stared at him with a pair of large eyes. How is he? Is he heavily injured? That person glanced at her and said vaguely, "You'll know when you see him." After that, no matter how Jiyu asked, he didn't say anything. The fire in Jiyu's heart burned brighter and brighter. She simply stood still and said, "If you don't tell me, I won't go." The black-clothed man paused for a moment, then suddenly let out a strange laugh. "If you don't want to go, then don't go." His figure flashed, and he actually left Jiyu alone on the street, leaving her alone. Jiyu, what's going on? Did he just abandon her like that? What was his goal? At this time, Jiyu didn't have time to think too much. She turned around and ran towards the darkest place. Who is it? Catch her. A group of soldiers from the Wuxia kingdom emerged from the ground and surrounded her in an instant, as if they had come out of the ground. Those soldiers were obviously experts. In just a moment, they had captured Jiyu, who was fighting like a cornered beast. A lantern shone on her cheek, and Jiyu subconsciously closed her eyes. Someone seemed to recognize her. She is Jiyu country's little princess. Wasn't she captured? Why are you out here? Could it be that he was secretly released by someone? Take her and give her to the Lord. The group of people was noisy, and Jiyu had a headache. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.